Hi, YouTube. Welcome to the Stratosphere Lounge. Bill Whittle here on a Monday night. Hope everybody's doing well. Greetings from Utah. Greetings from the People's Republic of California and all the ships at sea. I hope everybody's doing well. Um, I am in a actually pretty cheerful mood for a change. Uh, no, I've just been. It's just been really remarkable. Changing my attitude about things. Since I saw that large donation being made that I mentioned before, I just went through my contacts on my phone, and I haven't gone. I mean, obviously, I've gone searching through my contacts on my phone looking for particular names and stuff over the years, but I've never just scrolled through every single name, and I went through every single name on that list, came up with probably 15 people that I'm gonna be talking to about this project because I believe it's going to save the world and well, this country anyway. That's a good start. And yeah, I'm at the point where I'm just not going to take no for an answer, which is exactly where people need to be when you're trying to do something like this. I know Monday is our pop culture show. I got two quick little things to show you, mostly because I'm just cranking them out so fast. Um, and I'm continuing on with the rest of the stuff. Looks like we got the website pretty much sorted out now. For those of you uh, who are hopefully there won't be anybody experiencing any problems. We've been able to sign up new members for a couple of weeks now, and we just had this American guy who knows what he's doing. So for those of you who are members at BillWhittle.com, just real quick, if you should be able to go to your own member page, and I haven't checked it since a couple days ago, but we were doing last minute tweaks on it. But there should be two buttons: one if you were a member before September 1st or 30th of 2025, and then if you were after, because we kind of switched banks. But it looks like we've got all of those problems sorted out. So it's time to get some of this stuff out the door. So I got two things to show you because, like I said, I'm cranking them out real fast. Not going to spend a lot of time on this other than just to run them because I just did one of them. Sometimes I have an hour or two to spare. And that's really all it took. Neither one of these are particularly impressive, but at least not compared to the other stuff. But in any event, they are interesting. So I'll bring them out. I'll try them out again on Monday night, but I'll show them to you now. They're all loaded for a change. You know what? How about that? And oh, hey, look at that. Denim 4250 says problems on the membership page are indeed sorted out. I think we should probably just at this point just celebrate by getting smashed. Real Goddess says, how's Natasha? Sorry. Sorry about that. Real Good Ideas says, how's Natasha? She's doing okay. She's just been in a lot of pain for a long time. It turns out that she had, because she's a photographer for so many years, big lenses balancing like this, and it was her left wrist that got hurt. She had some mild arthritis on her base of her thumb, and when she went down and fractured that radius, it really aggravated the hell out of the arthritis. So she's been hurting, and she doesn't want to keep taking the painkillers and hasn't for a while. So she's just a soldier, and she's just hanging in there and doing the best we can. And but she's healing very well, and the incision is terrific. Went to the doctors a couple days ago for, I think this is our fifth or sixth post-op opportunity, and he said it's healing real well, and he's real happy with it. She's got all of her range of motion is there. This kind of motion is hard for her, which is going to be physical therapy, which is, you got to stretch tendons and it hurts, but we're going to let that arthritis die down. Other than that, we're doing just fine. Thanks for everybody. Nope, nobody needs to do anything. I'm so glad you mentioned that, Andrew DeLay. Said, do we change banks? Do you need to do anything to add your credit card back? No, if you're a member, should be able to just go to the page. It says that I don't have a payment method. I will look into that. I think we got that resolved. Let me have a look at that, Andrew, and I'll be back with it on Monday for sure. Anyway, let's see what we got here. I want to bring these up so I can see. Great. So two little things. Again, neither one of these are particularly are shaking, but I got them, so smoke them if you got them. When we talked last time on Monday, we were mentioning that Midjourney doesn't really do ugly people. We played around at the end of the show with trying to make ugly people, and and couldn't do it. I guess it's because most of the pictures that get uploaded are not ugly people. But I went at it, and so I had an hour to kill, and I started rendering faces for the bureaucracy, for the Earth government that these guys are trying to get away from. So I wanted. I didn't want every now one or two of the faces that you're going to see. I probably should have pulled them out of the lineup. One or two of the faces you're going to. One of them is just plain weird. Doesn't even look really very believable. Another one looks like a guy who's like a hot dog vendor on the streets of New York. But the rest of them look. GK Masterson is here! Hey, hooray! But the rest of them look like bureaucrats. One or two of the faces that you're going to see are. I like enough to maybe use as the founders or so on. But these are essentially the Earth bureaucrats, and I was kind of going for a, kind of a not quite Tim Waltz, but bureaucrat look, and for the women, looking for Nancy Pelosi, control freak types. So we'll take a quick look at that, and. There was more thing I was going to say about that about this face. Oh, there's one face, and I'd be willing to bet you just put a one in the comments or something when you see it. There's one face that I generated that was a pretty weird looking face, but when the guy smiled, so I just did like 5-second animations on all of them. When he smiled, I just said. It just scared the daylights out of me. The guy is a complete freaking psychopath, just psychopath. So okay, so these are just sort of render tests, idea tests. One final thing. For some reason, I could not break Midjourney out. Usually, you have to push Midjourney to get close enough to these people. These things were rendered with the camera right there, so there's a lot of fisheye distortion, which makes them look even more evil. Yeah, just for those of you who said everybody was too good looking, this is my take on faces of the bureaucrats, and it's only like I don't know, it's a minute long or something like that. And I got one other thing after that to share. Okay, ready, set, and here we go. Okay, so those were some different kind of faces than the heroic American pioneers looking to the far horizon kind of thing. And some of those are actually pretty cool. And I just was playing around with those. Now, let's. That was Midjourney, and then and Midjourney did the renderings on it. So now I have, and Natasha did that music, by the way. So now I have one more thing to show you. It's even shorter. This isn't even a minute long. The question that some people have been asking, and I haven't had a chance to really play with it until now, and that is, can I do a believable scene? So I was just rendering some faces of like some of these executives, and I had a objective, and the objective was to have one guy. Now they should be wearing science fiction outfits. They're just dressed in regular suits and ties, but it's a two shot. It's a shot on character A, shot on character B, and they have to match. The lighting has to match, and the background had to match. And so what I'm going to show you is a scene which you should not under any circumstances take as a writing example, because I was just typing lines in as they came to me. But the question is, if you were just to glance across a room, let's say, and see this on a TV screen, would this look like a real movie to you? That's the test. And what I learned from this thing was I got the two faces that I liked real fast, but the performance, this was not performance capture. We're going to do performance capture for all of the important people and all the important scenes, but this was just text to video. So I would just write in a line, whatever just kind of flew into my head, and then VO3 would generate the performance. And what I ended up doing was spending about an hour with the prompts, pushing down the acting. Just because I'm got a show business background, I can usually tell AI music and almost certainly tell AI writing. And since there's been so many AI videos that have come out with people just doing this, I can certainly tell AI acting. And all I'm trying to do with this next thing I'm going to show you is, does it look like a movie scene? Is the continuity believable? And do these look and sound kind of like real people? Because for the lower level characters, it's much easier just to type in the script, type in the words, and have them say it. And to be honest with you, the performances that the Geode 3 and some of these other things do are great. So some of these, it consists of like 6 shots, I think. Some of these shots I had to render 40 times just to finesse the acting. By the way, just real quick before I show you, this is very much like being a film director, because what happens is you'll have a shot on an actor and he'll say his line, and you'll go, never really want to give an actor, at least not a good actor, a line reading, but you want to, let's just take it down just a little bit and give me a little more emphasis on this. So I had to do a lot of that, a lot. But considering this wasn't motion capture acting, I'm pretty happy with it. It's just a short little scene, and again, don't judge the dialogue, because I didn't put any effort into the dialogue. I just wanted to see if it looks like a movie and if it plays like a scene. So ready? Okay, and here we go.
What makes you think that an insect like you can just walk into my office like you own the place?
Well, just a basic lack of good old common sense, if I had to guess.
You know what keeps all of this running? Fear.
Fear, huh? Fear of what? Fear of the devil, maybe?
Speak his name, and he shall appear.
Has anyone ever told you you're not a terribly fun guy to be around?
Get out.
Ta-da! I thought it. Yeah, a lot of people said he looks a bit like. A lot of guys saying the guy looks like Nixon. I thought it was actually pretty good. And it looked like a movie. And the most important thing was that the lighting in the background was real good, I thought. So, yeah. This kind of thing for, like, guy behind an attendant. Yes, very nice cinematography, says John Ogilvy, and this thing does tremendous. And the facial expressions are perfect. And I have been, as I've said 100 times, I have been waiting for traditional CGI to get to this place. And after this, I will go and look at the best CGI that's available. I do this every couple of weeks or so, and it's not even close, man. It's not even close. Grelber says if you could keep that up for movie length, I would happily watch it. I will keep it up for movie length. Baz Kataz, or maybe it's Base Kataz, or Baz Kataz. In any event, it's a cool name. Whose voice is the old man? Both voices were generated by Google. Now, one of the things I did, and I entered this prompt so many times, and after I did 20, 30 renderings of it, I just gave up, was I wanted the older guy to have a Southern accent. Well, this is the accent that Google provided, but now we get into something that's really cool, because I can go to 101, which is a voice thing. I can take the actual synchronized dialogue that Google generates, convert that into any voice. I can build my own voices, and I can give this guy like a Southern accent, and that would really help distinguish things. And so, there you go. Our friend GK Masterson is back. I was so happy to see you, GK. Bill, how hard is it to learn this stuff? I have some ideas for solid soaps done in the crazy maple method. It's actually pretty easy, and unless you're me, it's not terribly. And even for me, it's not terribly expensive. You want to go to Midjourney. I think it's midjourney.ml. But just go to Midjourney and you'll get a prompt, and just start typing in prompts, and it takes a while. I've been finessing this, but the first thing I ever did was that Memorial Day faces, and once I told it what I was looking for, and the main thing to play with is there's a slider called Stylize, and you want to put that right around 100, maybe 150 out of 1,000. The bigger the number, the longer a leash you're giving Midjourney. And if you render, like if I were to render those soldiers, like one of the guys is on the beach at Normandy, and I think that was set at 100 or 150 stylization. If I'd rendered that at 1,000, there'd be like angels in the heavens, and it's just really cool. Have I had a chance to play with any of the custom AIs I made? I didn't see the AIs. I saw the I saw the things you texted me. If you want to email me the AIs, I'd be happy to take a look at them. And thank you very much. Ardenham says Memorial Day short was an AI masterpiece. It was the first thing I ever did. And once I saw these faces come out, I said, man, it is time for me to get frickin' going. And I didn't use the weird slider because every time I use weird, it just goes nuts. I said, guy's a little jowly, overweight, or give him his age, and that kind of thing. So just go play with it. Midjourney is a program. Here, hang on a second, I'll get you the link. Anybody can use it. You need to set up. I think you get to do some things for free, but you can set up an account. You just take their minimum account, and you can cancel it anytime. And so now it used to be like I said, the stuff is happening so fast. It used to be that Midjourney just did the stills. You have to take it into a different piece of software to animate, but now Midjourney does their own animations. There's a little animate button down there. Animate low speed usually, unless you're doing something really frenetic. But here's the URL. Hang on a second. I guess it's just midjourney.com. Let me just double check. Nope. I'm logged in. Hang on. Hang on a second. It is midjourney.com. Yep, just midjourney.com. And you'll see there's a pull down menu for the aspect ratio. You can do them vertical like the phone. You can do them horizontally. Just play with it. It's just fun. It's just a lot of fun. If you're really serious and you know what you're looking for, exactly what you're looking for, then it might start to get a little frustrating while you're trying to dial in the presets and stuff. But I'm just looking at the intro page, and it's spectacular. I think that stuff of the astronauts re-entering the atmosphere is frickin' world class, and I'm just really happy with it. Okay, anyway, enough of that. I just thought I'd let you know. We'll come back to that on Monday. I missed a super chat somewhere over here. Hang on a second. G.K. Masterson, author. Hey, Bill, how hard is it to learn this stuff? Oh, there you go. That was the super chat. It's actually really fun. So when you type in a prompt, you'll get an image, and if it turns out that you don't like the image, you want to be more detailed. I'll give you one piece of advice. It's good advice. If you're familiar with ChatGPT, and you don't have to be just go to ChatGPT online. Hang on a second, Rivera, I'll get to that. What ChatGPT is really good at is writing a Midjourney prompt. So probably the best things to do is to go ahead to Midjourney, play around with a couple of prompts, and then go to ChatGPT and just say, Chat, I'm looking for you to write a prompt for Midjourney, and it'll say, okay, great, how can I help you? And then describe it to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT will turn it into a really detailed Midjourney point. ChatGPT will say it's a quiet cafe. People are passing by on the streets with baguette rolls, and the lighting is warm and soft with candlelight. It just goes to all that detail. So there you go. So to answer Rivera's question here, and then we'll get on to the politics. What is your ultimate goal? Your experiment with developing graphic shows. What do you want to end up with? I'm ending up with a I don't really like this word, but I don't know what else to call it. I'm developing a franchise. I'm developing something that's not a movie. It looks like a TV show, and it's probably the best way to think about it. It's episodic television, but I don't want it to end. I want it to keep going, and I want to, and I be careful about this because, but basically, what I want to do is I want to open source it, and I want to. It is the hardest hard science fiction that has ever been put on camera, ever. And I want it to move into the place where Star Trek and Star Wars used to be. Both of those have been destroyed. It is certainly not. How do I put this? It's not designed to be male oriented, but most science fiction fans are male, and they've been treated to a nonstop diet of girl bosses and ass kicking female warriors and all the rest of it. No, this whole thing is about it's about families. It's really about people, and they are partners. The wives and the husbands are partners, and they love each other, and they have children. Can you imagine? And so, what I'm really trying to do is to create a world that gives, especially Gen Z males, examples of what to be. There have been times in my life where things have been really grim, and times where it's been so grim where I've had psychologists in a therapy session just say, who if you could be anybody, who would you be? I'd say, well, I mean, this guy, not the Gorn. I'd be this guy. I'd be James C. Kirk of the Starship Enterprise. She would say, just act like him, and that actually really worked well for, I don't know, certainly no less than 20 minutes. But when I was pitching this, and I'm continuing to pitch it, I was talking about this, and I said something. Often say things by accident that impress myself. I said, honestly, I'd be willing to bet you real money, that a lot of the men that went out of the landing boats at Normandy and Iwo Jima and right into that machine gun fire, I'd be willing to bet you that a lot of them only did it because they didn't want to let John Wayne down. I believe that, and not only do I believe it, I've heard it from veterans. Yeah, we went ashore into this machine gun fire and watched my friend turn into pink mist because none of us wanted to let John Wayne down. Well, who do we have like that in the pop culture anymore? I mean, who do we have? I can't think of a soul. I really can't. I love the 40K universe. I think it's fun. It's not what I would like people to emulate. And when I did that one thing about the gorgeous people on Earth and then the pioneer families and how much humanity there was, and and fathers are hugging their wives and they've got 3 kids in tow and they're going for pony rides on robotic ponies and they're all the guys are flirting with the girls are flirting with the guys, the women are doing the jobs, but they're not, they're protected. And I think if I can show young men how to behave on camera, I really think that young women will eat this stuff up. Segueing into the politics now, I'm sure there'll be plenty of questions about this. I've been spending a lot of brain cycles on Nick Fuentes, and not enough. I heard Nick Fuentes. I'm spending a lot of brain cycles on his appeal, on what it is about him. Castellan says, I think the problem is not the young men, it is the young women. 100%. Couldn't agree more. Kind of ties into this Fuentes thing. This is why that pioneer family is so important, and why I spend so much time trying to get Lisa, get that face and that personality right, because she is kind of this is like the ideal wife, right? I mean, her husband is the rock of the family. She's not helpless. She's not weak. She's just crazy in love with this guy because this guy goes out there and shoots the wolves. And as I continue to develop all these things, I'm having her come from a rich family and all of this stuff. And so I want people to I want Gen Z people to get over this war between the men and the women, which is, I would say, 95% the fault of the women because of the feminist leftist crap that they bought. So in any event, that's kind of where I'm going with that. Here's something that I want to address. Alex Super here on the Twitch chat says, I don't understand why we're arguing about accepting Nick Fuentes. This isn't the conversation. We need to tolerate alternative perspectives without undue attention, while much more important matters call our attention. I'm going to disagree with you on that, because because Fuentes is, I don't know if anybody else feels it. I feel it. He's gathering strength like it's like watching a tropical storm coming up from the equator, and you don't have to like it, but I don't think there's any question about it. He is rapidly gaining a great deal of power and strength, and you can't fight Fuentes unless you understand what his appeal is. And I understand his appeal. I see why Gen Z men are turning to him in large numbers. Look, man, I don't know what the number was, but I think I saw some statistic that said of all the male interns in Washington, the young Republicans that are working, it's something like 40, 50, 60% of them consider themselves groypers, which is his army. And if you don't think that's a problem, it's a huge problem. He's trying real hard to take them out of the MAGA movement, and he's introducing really toxic ideas. But the point is, and this is the point. Colonel Angus says, "Why would I fight Nick Fuentes?" I'm gonna fight Nick Fuentes because Nick Fuentes is a dangerous guy. Anybody who says that he remembers Stalin's birthday, he's a big admirer of Stalin. Anybody who says when we come to power, we're going to kill all the Jews, which is I heard him say verbatim. Anybody who admires Adolf Hitler, there are people out there now who are saying we were on the wrong side during World War II, and that has to be fought. But what's clear to me, crystal clear to me, is that he is. Look, this is when Fuentes is cornered on this, he'll say, "I'm just criticizing the state of Israel," which I am 100% in favor of. I mean, I don't buy this idea that Israel is immune from criticism under any circumstances. But this is not what he's selling. He's not selling this. And when you look at the comments, he's selling just plain Jew hatred. Period. And the problem with Nick is that he's got a lot of things. Not to put too fine a point on it, but the reason that Hitler was able to, I understand these guys. I'm not talking about Fuentes. I'm talking about Hitler and Stalin. I've spent a lot of my time as a historian researching both of them, and I know how they both. Well, not Stalin. Stalin basically stepped into Lenin's shoes. Lenin's rise was different, but Hitler's rise was predicated by understanding what people were so resentful of, and then crafting a message that included as much truth as possible. This is the key. As many true things as you could possibly pack into this thing, and put it in line with people's lowest possible motivations and emotions. That's the secret sauce. The way that that demagogues and people like that gain the kind of following that they gain is they take legitimate grievances, legitimate grievances, stack them up, amplify them, and then take them like one step further. But if you actually, I've never said a word of criticism about Fuentes, and I've only been talking about him since Charlie Kirk died. But I've never said one thing about Nick Fuentes that I didn't hear with my own ears. So in order to see, I don't want to fight Fuentes. I want to disarm him. That's what I want to do. Yeah, Merge says canceling will only make him stronger. I don't want to cancel him. And I sure as hell don't think he's beyond debate. I'd love to debate Nick Fuentes, love to. I would really enjoy that. But you have to understand that when you're dealing with people, Hitler had the same exact situation where all of these veterans coming back from World War I, who had been so proud and had fought and died, seen all their friends dying for 4 years, and you end World War I with a surrender. Now that army was beaten, but the Germans were so proud, so martially proud, so proud of their military prowess, they couldn't. Anybody who could offer them anesthesia for the fact that they had lost the war was relieving their biggest pain. So Hitler comes along and says, "Hey, it's not our fault. I was there on the trenches. We didn't lose the war. It's the Jews back there that sold us out to the Allies. They're the ones that lost the war." And instantly, he's got a real toehold. So Fuentes is talking about things like, well, near as I can tell, he still is a proud incel. For those of you who haven't been following along with the program, the term incel is a term applied to young men, and they own it. It stands for involuntarily celibate. Now, back in my day, when I was an incel, we used to just call them nerds, but that's before nerds were cool. Nerds and dorks, guys who were just not good with women, just didn't have the confidence. Fuentes is selling that. He's proud of it. I think that you can probably sell, here's how you have a happy relationship with a woman and don't let her run you into the ground, but you don't have to be this. The way you fight this thing is you don't fight a hurricane head on. You don't fight a hurricane head on. You can stand on the beach and rage, and you can shoot at it, and you can fire missiles at it. You can even drop a nuclear bomb on it. I bet you wouldn't have any effect. The way that a hurricane disappears is you take away its heat source. Once a hurricane gets off of warm water and gets onto land, it lasts 4 or 5 days, something like that. Okay, so you gotta take away its heat source. You gotta take away its energy source and let it blow itself out. And the more you confront somebody like Nick Fuentes head on, the more heat you're adding to the equation, and the more powerful he becomes. The problem is that Fuentes is everything that the left has been accusing us of that was never true prior to this. That's primarily, in a nutshell, the problem. And I think this is one way you can start to chip away a little bit at the guy's charisma. So let me just tell you, just give you a like a baseball scout's appraisal of this kid out there in the bullpen. The guy has tremendous rhetorical talent. He's got a sharp ear for what people want to hear. He gives the impression of indomitable confidence. Now, I'm a theater major, and I can see cracks in that. I can see how that is a performance, but he comes off as extremely confident. For example, Nick Fuentes just comes out and uses the N-word as often as he possibly can. And I agree with him to the degree that I don't think that the word should be off limits. Nevertheless, there it is. But because he does this constantly, it tells his followers that he's not afraid of anything. He's not afraid of the things that have kept Gen Z males down their entire lives, right? Their entire lives. I don't read it as confidence either, Coffee Shinato, but it looks like confidence. So the fact that he comes out and says these words, and he'll sometimes say it with a black guy on the sitting right next to him, is telling millions of young men, who, by the way, won the election for us in 2024. Young males between the 2020 election and the 2024 election went to the right by 36 freaking points. That's the target. That's who I want. And Fuentes is sucking them up because nobody is out there with a counter message. You know, you get guys like Matt Walsh or Ben Shapiro, and they talk about, well, it's ridiculous. You should be single. You should be married like we are. It's like, you guys don't have a clue what the young women are like out there. You don't have a clue how toxic they are, and how entitled they are, and how nasty they are, and how, frankly, whorish they are. I mean, they're just really, 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 really damaged goods. And this is the whole MGTOW movement, men going their own way. I understand how that works. I've seen enough of these women and them talking about how we don't need any men, and men don't contribute anything to society, and women are much more valuable than men, and I'd rather walk in the woods with a bear than with a man, and on 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 and on. Now, this is why I'm on this topic. Inval 42 says, Konstantin Kisin did a video today. He pointed out that Fuentes and his followers aren't conservative because they don't want small government. They want revenge, just like the goddamn Nazis. Exactly. They're not conservatives. And Eric said, oddly enough, Fuentes told his minions not to support Trump. Well, in the 2024 election, not supporting Trump, his minions were 16, 17 years old. In 2028, they're going to be of voting age. And if you don't think this is a serious problem, you're wrong. It is a critically serious problem because they're very loud, they're gaining a lot of attention, and they are they're calling themselves conservatives. They're calling themselves the right. Now, Fuentes says that he's far right, but he's not. There's nothing conservative about him. Nothing. He admires Stalin. He claims that that he represents white Christian America. But he's a huge admirer of Joseph Stalin, and there's not a person in the history of the world that killed more white Christians than Joseph Stalin. This is why he's so dangerous, because we are living in a time now where nobody believes anything. Nobody believes anything. Everything is a conspiracy. I talked about this either last Monday or last Thursday. Coined a phrase that I like a lot, and it's just an expression, but basically, we have grown up so much on mysteries and suspense and thrillers with a twist that people now believe that the more obvious something is and the more evidence there is for it is more proof that it cannot be true. If there's overwhelming evidence in terms of one conclusion, they think that conclusion cannot possibly be true because where's the twist? If this is the obvious candidate, then everything they've ever seen their entire life tells you, no, that's the guy who you're supposed to disagree with. He's the patsy. The real guy is going to be revealed. Marisha says, Bill, I disagree. They are conservative in the same way Islam is conservative. They're conservating certain traditional religious values in their own sense of how the country used to be. They know nothing about how the country used to be. Those aren't the things you and I would conserve, but it's a maladaptive form of conservatism. They're not conservatives. You're redefining conservatism by saying that these guys believe in conservatism. They don't. They don't believe in the free market. They don't believe in limited government. They don't believe in e pluribus unum. They don't believe that America is an idea. They believe America is a bloodline. I don't believe that. I do believe that there's been an intention. This is why I'm saying that Nick has got to be fought in a certain way. Because as I said, a great deal of what he says is true. I'd say probably 80%, not 80% of what he says is 100% true, but the things he says are 80% true. And so, yes, this country has, for 30 or 40 years now, been absolutely engineered to accept millions and millions of immigrants who've got nothing to do with our culture whatsoever. They have nothing in common with us. They've been shipped in by the boatload in order to pick up the benefits. And the country is being changed because of unassimilated immigrants who are coming from places that are antithetical to everything that we believe in. And that's real. And if you're going to say it's not real, you're losing your mind. You know, this black fatigue is real. This absolutely out of control sense of entitlement and absolute disrespect for any form of the law or so on. Does this apply to all black people? No, of course not. It does. Of course, it doesn't apply to all black people, but it applies enough of them for it to look like and for it to be a real problem. And so you've got to get all of these things understood before you start going about this, because he takes things. What Fuentes essentially does, and Tucker does this too. They take actual problems that can be, and not can be, they take actual problems that are identified with certain ethnic or religious or racial groups. And they say these things are problems, which they are. And then what they do is they say, therefore, all of these people in this group are guilty, and that's where you run into real problems. So does Israel have undue influence on the U.S. government? I don't know if they have they certainly have disproportional influence on the U.S. government compared to other countries. There's no question about that. That's lobbying. And so people hear this and they think that they control the U.S. government. I don't think they control the U.S. government. I think they influence the U.S. government. I think there's plenty of reasons why the U.S. government is allied with Israel. But all of these things are things that you need to have a discussion about. So while you can say that Israel has a disproportionate effect on the U.S. government compared to Mozambique, let's say, or France even, or whatever the case may be, you can say that that's true, but that's not the same thing as saying that Jews control America and we fight our wars for them. So this is the challenge. The challenge is you have to, it's not really a hard challenge. The entire argument against these people is not that these things aren't real, but that they don't apply to a collective, because we're not collectivists. We're individualists. That's the entire argument. I've said from the beginning of this political commentary that I've been doing for 15 years now, the only terms that are consistent across history to describe the difference between us and Nancy Pelosi is, well, in the 1860s, Republicans were radicals. What are we conserving? We're conserving classical liberalism. And all of these definitions and right wing and left wing, which originally applied just to one parliament in Europe and all the rest of this stuff, right? None of that is consistent. The only thing that's consistent is individualists versus collectivists. That's it. That's it. The Nazis were collectivists. The Soviets were collectivists. The Democrats are collectivists. Conservatives are individualists. And if your entire identity is you are an individualist, you can't say that it's the fault of the Jews. You can say that some Jews, like, Soros, for example, is a real problem. And you can say things like American Jews tend to vote for left-wing policies. It makes no sense to me, but it's true. And you could say that too, but that's not all the Jews. And so when they say this guy is a Jewish donor, he's not a Jewish donor, he's an American donor. Is he contributing to conservative causes? Is he contributing to progressive causes? That's how you identify these people. So yeah, Dylan says, Tucker will say that Iraq was not in the interest of the United States. You can have that discussion. Tucker says that dropping the atom bomb was a war crime. Tucker said that that living in Riyadh means you don't have to worry about locking your car. You can leave your keys in your car at night, and their rape rate is essentially zero. You would never hear me making that argument ever. I like being able to leave my keys in a car at night without having a car broken into. And I really like the idea that nobody's getting raped in my neighborhood or my country. But you will never hear me say, ever, that we need to be, that Riyadh is great, that Islam is the way to go because of that. So you cannot defeat these people by doing what we've been doing. You can't defeat him by going head to head with him, because the more people like Ben Shapiro go head to head with him, the more powerful he gets. And you can't go at that movement without understanding the legitimate concerns and grievances that they have. Marisha says his point about Riyadh was that there are trade-offs, that they do some things well and aren't cartoon villains. See, I think they are cartoon villains. I think the Saudis are cartoon villains. I really do. I don't see anything about that culture, anything admirable or anything that I would like to import. And then you come along, and again, this is what I say when I say you've got to acknowledge the grievances. When I heard Ben Shapiro out of his mouth say that the number one reason he loved America was that it was a guarantor of Israel, I was shocked. You never hear that come out of my mouth either, right? But if you don't want the word conservative to be equated with we are going to use the authoritarian power of the state in order to institute our vision of what America is. That's not America. And what Fuentes has said out of his own mouth without any prompting are things like he really admires Hitler, that history was wrong about Hitler. He said on the Tucker Carlson show, oh, that date, I forget what the date is because Joseph Stalin's not my hero. But somebody mentioned a date, and Tucker mentioned a date, and Fuentes says, oh, that date's, yeah, it's Joseph Stalin's birthday. And Tucker said, really? And he said, yeah, I'm a big admirer. I'm not a big admirer of Joseph Stalin. I'm not a big admirer of him at all. I'm not an admirer of Hitler either. I don't think that we were on the wrong side in World War II. I don't think that Winston Churchill started World War II, was responsible for World War II. I believe we landed on the moon. I believe 9/11 was caused by Islamic terrorists, not the Israeli government. So here's the dilemma. If you do nothing, you lose, because he will vacuum up he will just vacuum up everything. There's nobody, because nobody is contradicting him. He's doing exactly what Michael Moore did. He is. I think I did this back when I was writing Eject. In fact, I'm sure I did this in Eject. I use the example of how Michael Moore works. Michael Moore, metaphorically, if you stand on the beach, let's say you drive down Pacific Coast Highway, and you look out the window towards the Pacific, and you look down at the beach, and I asked you what color the beach is, you would say that the beach is white. It's a tan. It's a light tan. It's an off-white, eggshell. Not even eggshell. It's just slightly off-white. It's a white beach. Okay, so the sands of Malibu beaches are white, right? Here's how Michael Moore works. Michael Moore goes out to the beach at Malibu, and he sits there. He rests his enormous manatee-like body close to the water so that somebody can roll him in. You just want to keep his skin wet. But Michael Moore will sit there, and what he'll do is he'll pick up a handful of sand, and he'll get out his watchmaker glasses and a very fine pair of tweezers. And if you know what sand looks like, I'll show you. Anybody who's not seen sand before, hang on a second. I just want a particularly good image that's really clear about what I'm trying to see here. Yeah, that'll work. Okay, so Michael Moore goes to the beach, right? And he takes a bucket with him. And then he sits there on the beach and he looks at the sand grain by grain. Hang on, YouTube, it's coming. Okay? There's sand. Hang on, YouTube. So Michael Moore goes and takes a handful of sand like this, right? Which you can see from this distance is basically a white, and when the sun's shining on it directly, it's a pretty bright white. So Michael Moore goes down to the beach and he looks at this, and he gets out his tweezers, and then look at this image and look for the darkest particles of sand that you can find. I see one towards the center, let's say bottom quarter, pretty much right near the center. I see one that's damn near black. There's another one that looks almost black, and a bunch of them are different shades, but Michael Moore's not messing around. So he takes this handful of sand and he sips it with his tweezers, and all of the black pieces of sand, and only the black pieces of sand, he picks out with his tweezers, and he puts those into the pail. Now this takes a long time to accomplish, but that doesn't matter to him because he knows exactly what he's doing. If he sits there long enough and takes just the darkest, blackest pieces of that sand and puts them in a bucket, then Michael Moore can go at a speaking event or can go on national television, and he can hold up that bucket and he says, "This is the sand that I got from Malibu, and you can see that this beach is black." And that's exactly how it works. That's how selective, just selection bias works. He does it on purpose. So Michael Moore can stand there and say, "This is the black sand of Malibu. This isn't a white beach." He can hand it out to people. People can run their fingers through it, right? But is he lying? He'll say, "No, I'm not lying. I got this sand from Malibu." And he's right. But of course he's lying. He's lying by not telling the whole truth. He's lying by connecting a bunch of dots to create whatever animal he wants to and ignoring the rest of the stuff. I don't like sand. It's messy and gets on. I learned that from the great writer George Lucas. See, that's how it works. So this is what Fuentes is doing. He's taking legitimate things and putting them together and stringing them together without any counterpoint, and he's manufacturing a narrative. I'm just looking at some of the comments here. Eric Blake says the manatees are offended. I didn't mean to do that. Let me just have a look. Now, actually, Roger Ramjet says clearly he's never been to the Black Sand Beach in Hawaii. As a matter of fact, I have been to the Black Sand Beach in Hawaii, and that beach is black. That is a black sand beach. But that's actually proving my point. Right? You can step back at that and look at the entire picture and say, that is black sand. I've been there. It's really cool. It's really, really cool. It's freaking bizarre. They got a little wetland area back there with floating like lily pads and stuff. So what you have to do, I think, in order to fight this is, first of all, you'd never fight it head on. And secondly, you got to start just chipping away at the credibility of it, right? The credibility, the inherent contradictions, and make them face those contradictions. For example, let me just double check something. Okay. For example, if you say, and Fuentes has said this, he said it about Mark Levin the other day. He said, you're Jewish, you need to get out. All the Jews need to get out of America. All of them? You said all of them. You really mean all of them? What about Jonas Salk, for example? Jonas Salk was Jewish. Jonas Salk, pretty much by himself, developed the polio vaccine that saved tens of millions of lives at the time, and all of the descendants of the people that went on to live because of that. So when you say all of them, do you mean guys like Jonas Salk as well, or do you just mean the bad ones? Because if there's one good one, right? If there's one good one, then it's not all of them, is it? And once you get them to that place, then you can start to see how flawed and evil this argument is by collectivizing it. I really don't know what he believes, but I think there are just tremendous weaknesses there that have to be exploited. And I think, well, not to put too fine a point on it, this is why I think the colonies is so important, because Fuentes is basically saying to his groypers, I'm an incel. I'm going to wait till I'm 30, and then I'm going to marry a 16-year-old. Okay. I'm saying, why don't we show, not tell, because you can't tell anybody anything. Why don't we show people what normal heterosexual relationships are supposed to look like? Why don't we show men and women as partners covering each other's weaknesses and doing what they're biologically designed to do, and they're happy? Why don't we show that? Yeah, so Alex Super says, I draw the line at killing him at his doorstep. Of course I do. Nobody gets killed in my political philosophy. That's what we're fighting. That's what we're trying to avoid. And you draw the line at shadow banning all of the gripers. I completely agree. If you ban him, you make him stronger. Did we not learn anything from Hitler? Are we incapable of learning? If you look at the rise of people like this, and I'm not saying Fuentes is Hitler, because Fuentes didn't kill 6 million Jews. Fuentes didn't kill another 6 million homosexuals and gypsies and so on. And Fuentes didn't start a war that killed 52 million people around the world. He's a twerp. But I think that these groypers are definitely reachable. I just think that this is a great example of how miserable conservatives are at putting the conservative message into a story. Alex Hooper says, they will ban me for expressing my Christian distinction from Judaism bill. They will do it. They will call it anti-Semitism because I accept Jesus Christ as the Messiah. Listen, Alex, the country I live in, let me rephrase that, the ideal of the country that I want to live in is a country where people can say whatever they want to say, but they have no coercive physical power over you at all. Right? At all. The example that I used when I pitched this show was the Star Trek example. So let me just go over that again real quick, okay? When Star Trek came out in 1966, we were 21 years out of World War II. That would be 2004 for us, okay? 2004 doesn't seem like such a long time ago. Just let me roll with this for a second, okay? So Gene Roddenberry creates the bridge. He casts the crew of the Enterprise, the bridge crew, because that's the crew, right? So what does he do? Well, he's got the sense to cast an all-American boy as the captain. Even though he's Canadian and even though he's Jewish, William Shatner is the all-American. He's John Wayne, he's Gary Cooper, he's a handsome American man of action. He's all the women fall for him. He casts the center of the plot. he goes straight to the heart of mainstream America and plucks an iconic image of what a leader should be, and that becomes James T. Kirk. Okay? McCoy is not a controversial casting choice, but McCoy had to be a white male, straight white male, because McCoy had to come from the same place as Kirk, because McCoy is going to be arguing for the emotional side. Now, he's going to be arguing, McCoy is the devil's advocate. And so McCoy cannot be the other. McCoy cannot be an other. He's got to be part of the mainstream because he's the consciousness of the mainstream culture in 1966. But then Roddenberry just goes off the rails, because this is what made this show so relevant. Then Roddenberry says, in the front left seat, I'm going to put a Japanese guy. 21 years ago, we were nuking these nip bastards. 21 years ago, we were, yeah, I know he's Canadian. I said he's Canadian and he's also Jewish. But he's the archetypical American hero. Okay? So back to Roddenberry. So Roddenberry says, I am going to put this hated enemy, this most recent hated enemy. Let's not forget that World War II, the end of World War II, was closer to Star Trek than 9/11 is to us today. So, did I say consciousness? I meant to say conscience. Words are difficult. So just stay with me, okay? Just stay with me on this, okay? So Roddenberry says we're going to put a hated enemy in this one seat. I'm mixing up the timeline just a little bit. In the next season, by season 2, not only am I going to put a hated enemy from 20 years ago in the left seat, I'm going to put an enemy from today in the right seat. This is the heart of the Cold War, and he could have cast Chekhov. They wanted a young guy. They wanted somebody to be like the Beatles, and they wanted somebody to be like the Monkees. So if you saw the first wig that Walter Koenig was wearing in the first couple episodes, it's absolutely absurd. But he's Russian. He's a Russian on board the Enterprise because this is the heart of the Cold War. Okay. But his two real risks were he casts as a communications officer a black woman. And if you didn't get this, I know you're still talking about Fuentes in the comments, but this is the case I'm trying to make. Nichelle Nichols went to a party after the first season of Star Trek. And as it turned out, Martin Luther King was at that party. Martin Luther King went up to Nichelle Nichols and they were talking. And Nichelle Nichols said, Martin Luther King said, "It's incredible what you're doing on the show." And Nichelle Nichols says, "Thank you, Dr. King." She's worshipped him, obviously, but I'm going to leave the show. Really? Yeah. Why? Well, because I don't have any lines. I just say, "Captain, hailing frequencies open," or "I'm frightened," or whatever. And Martin Luther King, Nichelle Nichols told this story many times. Martin Luther King says to her, "You cannot leave the show. You absolutely cannot leave the show. You're the most important black person in America right now. You are showing black Americans, you're showing white Americans that black people are competent, capable, good-looking. You can't leave." And so she had an enormous effect. And ultimately, his biggest risk is Spock, who's not only not even, he's not white, he's not American, he's not even human. But he is a member of the Federation. He is part of the crew of the Enterprise. So the Bridge of the Enterprise is this idealized version of America where everybody comes from different places, but they're on the same team, and no one is the black navigator or the Japanese, or the black communications officer. He's not the Japanese helmsman. He's not the Russian navigator, and he's not the alien science officer. They're all on the Federation, all working on the same team. That's what America is. It's e pluribus unum, right? Spock is also Jewish. Yes, exactly. So that's how you defeat prejudice. That's how you do it. And that's why that show had such an impact on so many people, and why everything after starting with Discovery is not only not Star Trek, it's anti-Star Trek, because starting with Discovery, Star Trek became all about identity politics, all about identity politics. So, yes, and Lady Hawk's got it. Then the Lightbringer arrived and blew it up. He blew it up. Yes, he did. E pluribus unum is the essence of America. Charlie Kirk had a real nice beat about that when somebody, confronted him about that, said that America was designed for white people of European stock, and Charlie said, why didn't they put that in the Constitution? And the guy said, well, I don't know. And Charlie said, because they didn't believe that. Again, you have to also acknowledge the fact that if this country is going to work, the people that come here have to have some kind of shared basic cultural reference. So people from Scandinavia, Germany, Britain, all of these people have the same kind of culture. Yes, they look like the people that are already here, but nevertheless, they've got the same basic outlooks. And even if they come from someplace really foreign, if they understand that America is about giving up your former identity and becoming a new person, then there it is. It's especially interesting to me. I was looking at Fuentes' Wikipedia entry, and his grandparents are Irish, Italian, and Mexican, I think. The three most despised groups of immigrants in the history of the country. Kind of an ironic thing for a guy to be saying, kick out all the immigrants, and I'm going to be the judge of who's American enough to stay. So, this idea, you can say that look, there's no question in my mind. There's no question in my mind that for the last 50 years there has been an absolutely coordinated, intentional campaign to write white Americans out of their own history, and especially white males. There's no question about it. None. You never see a commercial with a white couple. You never see a commercial with a strong white father. You never see a commercial with a strong father, period. All of this stuff is absolutely true. There's no question about it. None. All of these remakes of stories like The Little Mermaid and Discovery and all of it, and then the destruction of Luke Skywalker in Star Wars, and the replacement of this hero with this woman who has all of these powers magically. It's all real. It's all real. This is real. It actually happens. But that doesn't mean you can be opposed to that and try and stop that without getting to the point where you said that this is a white person's country and only white people. I would rather live in an America that was composed of 320 million. Oh, for love of God, talk about losing a point. I'd rather live in America of 320 million Thomas Sowells than the American we live in right now. So I'm kind of scanning the comments as I'm talking here, but for people who think that you can just ignore him, you can't, and you can't ignore Tucker, and you can't ignore Candace. Those people are gaining followers at an astonishing rate because they're telling people the things that they're afraid of. That's actually the mark I'm trying to hit. The appeal, I could not have thought this. This is why I love doing this show so much, because I learn how to clarify my thinking. The appeal of Candace Tucker and Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, and Nick Fuentes is they tell people the one thing that they are most afraid of is true. That's what they do. That's what they do. They tell them that the one thing you're most afraid of is true. Candace has spent the last 2 months telling Americans that nothing that the government says is true. Everything is under wraps, and I am the only person on the planet who cares enough to have figured out what the truth is, and I'll tell you about this next show. Let me just get this. Dylan Stark says, but you can't say that U.S. support for Israel is the number one reason for having loyalty to the U.S. If you're America first, we're not exactly in this together at this point, are we? Look, I think what Ben said is shocking. It's shocking. I couldn't believe it actually came out of his mouth. You'd never hear me say that. My number one reason for supporting America is because I love America. And I don't have any other reasons for it. I have a fondness for Britain because I'm half British, but I know what side I was on in the Revolutionary War, and I know what side I'm on today. So again and again, it comes back to this foundation of distrust and confusion and worry, and then people like Candace and Nick are going right at that sore spot and grabbing people there and pulling them. What about the War of 1812? Good point, Roadrunner. Good point. I was speaking in Canada. Come on. Sometimes I just completely space out. Yes, I got that right. I thought, no, maybe that's a province. I was at Ottawa. Is that a province? No, I was at Ottawa. I was speaking at Ottawa. It was a long day. It was a conservative event hosted by the conservative government at the time. And I was the last guy to go up at 4 p.m. and people were just falling asleep, man. I've had this situation a couple times. And I got up there in front of this audience of almost exclusively Canadian conservatives who were just nodding off. The people in front of me, the politicians, was like, oh my God, I gotta get a defibrillator on this room. So I got up on the stage in Ottawa, and I said, well, hi, I'm Bill Whittle. I'm a conservative from the United States, and I know that most of you, because of the political power that we have, are really concerned about what is it that American conservatives are talking about. And I can tell you full confidence what American conservatives are talking about right now. It's the only thing we talk about. It's the only thing we've been talking about. It is the number one thing on our mind, and that is how exactly are we going to get revenge for the War of 1812? And I got a big laugh, I said, you merciless uncivilized barbarians from the north came down to our peaceful little village and burned our White House, and we've never forgotten it or forgiven it. I will tell you this, however, we might be able to take the United States Army, come back up, conquer Montreal, and we'll call it square. So that was fun. So look, and by the way, Alex, it's you're not being argumentative. This is why we have the show. We have a show to have discussions and arguments. That's fine. I love it. This is really fun for me. And no one here who's ever been at the Stratosphere shows or who is a Stratosphere Lounge or studio member should ever feel like, oh, I don't really want to say this. I don't want to piss Bill off. It's like, no, you're not going to piss me off. I might disagree with you. Once every year, maybe twice a year, I actually do get pissed off. But I get pissed off at the argument, not at the person. So, hey man, it's all cool. Have fun, GK. Let us know what you did. Love to see it. So, okay. Anyway, I think it's time to go to the questions. I think I said about enough about this. But the thing about Fuentes is that there's a lot of cracks in that facade. And And like I said, the way you deal with him is the way you deal with a hurricane. You do not add any heat because that's the energy source, and you just cool it down, but you do not ignore him and you do not confront him directly. I'd love to debate Nick. If I was debating Nick Fuentes, I would start by having a discussion about the things that we agree on. What can we agree on? And I would, and this is where I would agree with him to 80% of what he believes across the board. And that's when I would say, this is the line between reason and this is the line that's not reasonable because it's not true. Truth, reason, decency. That's it. Okay. All right. So anyway, that was fun. Let's grab in some questions. We'll go to BillWhittle.com and we won't go to BoyleWhittle.com because that's kind of gross. And look at that. And we just log in and the website will instantly take us to the membership forum page. Gadago says, new game, try to piss off Bill. Actually, pretty simple. Yeah, Destiny. If political commentary were a font, then Destiny would be Comic Sans. Here we go. See you, Deef. Right on up there with our friends in Canada. We love Canadians. I really do. I love them. I think they're great neighbors. Right, here we go. Thank you, Marusha, for curating this as you so often do. Really appreciate it. I genuinely really appreciate it. All right, see what we got here. Let's run the program. We got a Roadrunner. We got a Marusha Dark. We got a Braden Higby. We got a Ray Juarez. We got a Guy Bala. We got a Capital Geek, a Steve Young, another Steve Young, and Eric Blake. Yeah, we can do this. Of all the Groypers that I would like to bring back into the light of reason and away from these dark places that are dark because they're incorrect, if Fuentes was hateful but was correct, then I'd be on his side. But of all the Groypers I want to save, the one I'd like to save the most is Nick Fuentes, because the guy has real talent. He's just he's figured out a way to get attention that is really bad for the country, bad for his followers, and bad for him. Anyway, here we go. Thank you, Deef. Don't worry, buddy. You got our backs. We got your backs. All right, here we go. Marusha Dark topic. We'll see. So the results are in, and it looks like NYC overwhelmingly elected a commie for mayor. New Jersey overwhelmingly elected a governor who voted 100% in line with Biden's policies when she was in Congress. Virginia elected a chief law enforcement officer who'd openly proclaim he'd murder Republican children and who sides with Hitler over Trump in terms of who he'd shoot. California passed Prop 50 to allow totally not race-based gerrymandering, we swear. Guess the only thing left to do is refill our popcorn bowls and watch. I do personally enjoy Escape from New York, Escape from LA. The people have made their decision. Now let's see them enforce it. It's one thing to get elected. It's another to govern. I don't know about you, but my fondest hope is that these people who voted for this and who supported all of this are made to remain in those jurisdictions to live out the consequences of their choices. It won't be in what they want, but it will be what they voted for, whether they realize it or not. May they get everything they deserve, and may they get it good and hard. Oh, right, I'm supposed to ask a question. Bill, have you seen Charlie Wilson's War, right? No, I have not. I know about it. Do you know the story of the Zen master and the little boy? No. This feels like a repeat of when Trump lost in 2020. Also, how fast can we yeet the filibuster into the sun at this point? I think the filibuster is an important part of America. I just pulled up that clip. I'll take a look at it later. I'm not in favor of destroying things that have worked for a long time in this country. The filibuster, like the Harry Reid, the nuclear option. There's a lot to be said for these things, but back to the question. So I haven't seen Charlie Wilson's War. Can't really comment on that, but I can talk about the rest of the stuff. As we were walking into the theater for tonight's performance, I was just finishing my thumbnail for tomorrow's Right Angle. I start the Right Angle by saying, I remember back in the late 70s, I want to say 78, 79, when New York was rebranding itself. And the new tagline was "I Heart New York." How successful it was. Well, they've got a new tagline now, and the new tagline for New York is "You knew I was a snake when you picked me up." And the thumbnail is a picture of a beautiful day in New York City with a rainbow over the top, and there's a snake coiled around it. It's got Mandami's face, and he's got a big smile on his face. Yes, I hope they get it good and hard. You're gonna get a chance to see what Islam is like, and you're going to get a chance to see what socialism is like. Good. And since it's happening in New York City, it can't just be ignored. I think it's great. Did I skip your question, Red Runner? My God, I did. Thank you for pointing out to me. I will get that next. Sorry about that, Jackson. I will come back to that. Sorry about that. Yeah. Hey, look, man. You know what intellectual honesty is? Here's what intellectual honesty looks like. If Mandami brings socialism to New York, and the quality of life goes up for everybody, and the health care improves, and everything becomes more affordable, everybody has the freedoms that they were already had, in the beginning, and all of these programs work, and New York becomes a clean, happy, safe place, then I will re-examine my views on socialism. That's why we live in a laboratory of ideas. If everything these people believe is true, and New York improves enormously, becomes cleaner, safer, wealthier, happier, then I will have to re-examine my beliefs. But I'm not betting on that option. I got to go to this because I think it's so important. Copy Shinada said, "Clean and safe and happy is white supremacy, though." See, there's a lot of truth in that. There's a lot of truth in that, and to deny it is to ignore the essence of the problem. You have to acknowledge the problem. I've seen people say that the entire real estate market consists of how far can white people get away from black people and still have less than a 2-hour drive to work. There is truth to that statement because black culture has become dependent, intentionally entitled, intentionally marginalized, intentionally despairing. All of that stuff was done to keep them on the reservation by Democrats. But it's true. It's true. And to pretend it's not is to lose the argument. This is my belief system in a nutshell. All right, in a nutshell. I believe that the truth is real, is external, and that if you conform to the truth, you live in the happiest possible world that can exist here on planet Earth. That's what I believe. And anything that distorts the truth or tells you that something is true when it's not, like there's no difference between men and women, that lie is a foundation for a structure that makes everything worse. So I don't have any problem acknowledging what truth is. Ant-Man Channel says Black family was destroyed through gangster rap, culture, and drugs. Yes, John Eden comes in with a $99 super chat yet again, and 99 cents. John, we're just gonna have to have a special category for John. It's gonna have to be like the John. I need a banner or something. John, you are a steely-eyed missile man, and you have been for the longest time. I never ever feel like I can thank you enough. I always feel like I just move on. I never move on. I never take it for granted. It always means the world to me. Thank you so much, and everybody here feels the same thing. $100 super chat from John Eden. Fantastic. Thank you. So yeah, we got to acknowledge these things, right? And that's why I say truth reason, and decency. Decency means you have to have compassion for how these people got into these situations, but that's not the same thing as saying it's not their fault. If somebody sticks a knife in somebody's neck, this guy may have been raised in a culture of violence without a father at the house. And to some degree, it's fair to say that that doomed him, but you can't say it's not his fault, because if you say it's not his fault, then there's no such thing as free will. And if there's no such thing as free will, there's no such thing as individualism, there's no such thing as having agency over your whole life, and everything falls apart. I don't want to live in that world. And also, if you say it's not his fault, then you're just going to get more of it. So, one of the things, and I just kind of on a roll with this point. Decency means, this is why I went with truth, reason, and decency instead of truth, reason, and compassion. Because compassion can oppose and neutralize reason. Compassion, an appeal to your emotions, can destroy your reason. And if you destroy reason, you destroy your connection to truth. If you're not connected to truth, you're building a house of sand. So it's decent to understand that on some level, this guy who stabbed this woman was born into a situation that certainly minimized his chances of success. And that situation was created by Democratic politicians in order to keep that entire demographic of American citizens dependent on them for votes. It's pure evil from the top down. But decency doesn't mean, no, we got to let him go because it's not his fault. No. What did Adam Smith say? Tolerance of evil is tolerance of the guilty is something to the innocent. Incredible. Incredibly astute memory there. But it's something like tolerance of evil is something to the cruelty is cruel to the innocent. Thank you, Aussie drone guy. What a cool name. How are things in Australia for drone guys? By the way, mercy for the guilty is cruelty to the innocent. Thank you very much. When we deal with the flat Earth thing, there's one of the things that these flat earthers are saying is, how come we don't have any pictures from space zooming in on Australia so that we can see people standing upside down? And I'm just going to get a picture of Sydney, and I'm going to turn it upside down, and I'm going to say, here you go. Here you go. How come we don't see pictures of airplanes flying vertically when they're on the side of the world? Take a photograph of an airplane in level flight and want to rotate it 90 degrees. Here's your picture, man. Here's your proof. Because that's what it looks like. If you could stand on the moon and had a really good telescope, you would see airplanes flying on the limb of the planet, on the side of the planet. They'd be flying straight up and straight down. Anyway, I'm working on it, John. Got the website going. Still on conflicted, but it's top priority. And I know you guys are tired of hearing it, so I'm not going to say anything other than to say you're right, and I'm working on it, and I hear you. Where was I? Back to the question, I reckon. Oh, here it is. Yeah. So yeah, I'm with you, Marusha. I say back, get it good and hard, man. You are. There is nothing in the world, as I said on the show, more mobile than rich people. Hey, well done, Dave Olson. Dick Rutan proved the Earth was round. Damn it, man. Damn it. Why didn't I think of that? That is how I'm going to close that show, by God. What is the matter with me? Why could I not? That should have been the first thought I had. I'm going to close that truth bomb with, and the reason that we know the Earth is round is because my friend, the late Dick Rutan, flew in one direction, and then he came back home And he sent pictures the whole way. Dick Rutan proved the world is round. Dick and Bert. It's still my favorite line from the Dick Rutan memorial. If you're new here, or if you somehow managed to miss it, if you really want to see an amazing story, I'm exceedingly proud of this. If you want to see an amazing story about an amazing American, go to YouTube and search for "Remembering Dick Rutan," produced and directed by yours truly. Metal Lamp Man says, "Bill, are you okay?" You know, I'm less unokay than usual. Doing okay? Everything good with you? Metal Lamp Man. Am I sending off? Am I giving off crazy energy? Yeah, it's really worth watching if you haven't seen it. Remembering Dick Rutan, it's really good. Anyway, my favorite line from that is that Bert and Dick were arguing about this, and Dick was the pilot and Bert was the designer, and Bert knew that if he did not keep the control surfaces down to an absolute minimum, I'll get to the question. If you don't get the control surfaces down to the absolute minimum, there's going to be too much drag on the airplane, and if there's too much drag on the airplane, it's not going to fly around the world on one tank of gas. So Dick is up there test flying the airplane. The more fuel they put in it, the more uncontrollable it gets, and finally, Dick damn near crashes the airplane, and he comes storming out of the plane. He goes running over to his kid brother, and he says, "Damn it, Bert, that plane won't turn. You don't put enough control surfaces on it. There's not enough rudder, not enough aileron. That plane won't turn." And Bert looks at Dick and says, "Dick, it's an around the world flight. The plane doesn't have to turn at all." That's a legend. Two legends. All right, here we go. Back to the regretfully overlooked Roadrunner. Greetings, Bill. Hey, how you doing, buddy? Does Grokpedia have the potential to have as great an impact on society as X did when it replaced Twitter? Wikipedia has been a train wreck about any subject that does not involve hard science for so long. I've stopped using it for anything to do with current events, but since it is used as a primary reference for almost all search engines and AI searches, finding unbiased information on the internet is nearly impossible. Is this going to be a big deal? I kind of think so. Infidel 42 says it doesn't need to turn unless they need to dodge a mountain. As it turns out, they came about 60 seconds away from not dodging a mountain and killing all of them, and that'll be in there. Yeah, I've got a lot of. I'm very interested in Grokpedia. I agree with you how biased Wikipedia is about anything really social, but Wikipedia is it is a phenomenon. I mean, it's irreplaceable to me. For anything that's got like any kind of historical basis or scientific basis, it's irreplaceable. Now, AI is replacing Wikipedia for me because I can ask specific questions and I have to read the whole article. But yeah, I've seen a couple of entries on Grokpedia, and it seems to be much more unbiased. So I haven't tried out Grokpedia yet, but I will. I've been using Grok a lot for my research. But if Grokpedia is more accurate, not more right-wing, but more accurate, if it's more accurate than Wikipedia, and I've seen a couple of examples where it is clearly more accurate, then it deserves to replace it. I saw something about chip design or something. I may have misunderstood it because it was kind of in passing, but Elon was talking about these chips that they're going to be putting in next generation of self-driving cars, and that these chips are so bloody powerful, these Tesla chips, that the chips are so bloody powerful. But if I understood correctly, he plans to use the chips that drive your Tesla as a distributed render farm for AI. That each one of these Teslas are going to have a chip that's so powerful that while it's driving your car, it's also going to be contributing to, calculations, which I think is kind of cool. Marisha says, yes, Tesla cars, when not being used, will be used for computing. I think that's kind of cool, frankly. I do think you should have the right to turn it off because you bought it, but it's cool. It reminds me so much of, sometimes the wheels just get a little rusty, and I'm fine. I'm probably just dehydrated. SETI, what's it called? SETI at home? Yeah. Just beat Dave Big Boutte to it. SETI at home was great. It was a screensaver back in the 90s, I want to say. And back when you'd have a screensaver, because of the old cathode ray tubes, you had to constantly change it, so otherwise it's going to burn an image in there. And somebody had the idea, since everybody had screensavers, there was these guys that called something called SETI at home, because we were starting to have the kind of electronic power to gather, instead of once we pointed at a star. When Sagan was talking about the search for extraterrestrial intelligence back in the 70s, you'd point it at a star and you'd have to scan all of the frequencies one by one. You'd have to stay on each one, kind of long enough to be able to get there. There were certain frequencies like H alpha, hydrogen alpha frequency, which was likely because it went through space pretty well, went through clouds pretty well. But you had to stay on it for a long time, and then they figured out, well, we'll just scan all the frequencies at the same time. So now they've got much more data than they can process. So what SETI at home did was, you would install it, and when your computer wasn't doing something, when it went to sleep, it would download a packet from the internet using dial-up, and it would scan the data. And it would give you a little readout of the thing. And I thought, well, now what I found out was, it's not taking anything away from SETI at home, but what SETI at home would do is it would take a packet of data and send it out to 50,000 people, and they would all their computers would analyze the data, and it would all come back, and if everything correlated, it would say okay, so that there wouldn't be a false positive or anything. But the thing that's so interesting about SETI at home is it's the same thing as kind of like the Loch Ness Monster. I had that installed on my computer, and I don't know how many hours I spent, but I spent hours watching this thing just run, because I felt like there was a chance that I might be watching when the signal comes in. I wanted to be there. Like, wait. And by the way, so if SETI at home detected an anomaly, then the guys would go and pull the original data, and then they'd look at it professionally. John Pershing says, my home system ran thousands of SETI runs. Yeah, mine too. It was great. It was really, really cool. Really cool. Lady Hawk says, I ran SETI for almost 10 years. That's fantastic. I should ask Grokkapedia about me. Maybe somebody can do that for me and give me the toned down version. That's a line from Laurie Anderson. Here's a super chat. Bill, Grokkapedia has an entry for Bill Whittle. Would you please check it out and tell us if it's accurate or not? I will. I'll take a look at it. It had better be glowing. If it's not glowing and filled with superlatives, then hardly expect to believe its accuracy. Well, just a second ago. Gone. It's okay. We'll find out. Marisha Dark. Just kidding. We just read that one already. Braden Higby, who's starting to become a real regular contributor. Hey, Braden. Howdy from the still free state of Idaho. Hey, by the way, I saw a video from the mayor of Coeur d'Alene, which is my favorite part of Idaho, and this guy is a complete frickin' lunatic. John Ogley says, just had a quick look. It seems far more detailed than your Wikipedia page. If Grokkapedia is accurate, my Grokkapedia page should be about the same length as Abraham Lincoln, somewhere in that general vicinity. And there should be pictures of the bitchin' Camaro, and my gorgeous wife too. So there you go. Okay, back to Braden Higby. I don't have to worry about the Reds seizing my state in the near future, not as much as the North Enders of Boise wish. Otherwise, you have how can Boise, Idaho be blue? Well, it's because of cities, man. It's because of cities. Cities are dying, There's no reason to have them in the information age. The blue model is not coming back, and Zohan is going to help it along. I'm doing my part in electing the most conservative candidates I can to ensure it remains that way. Outside of guarding my state from such a takeover, what can I do to fight against the Democratic Socialists 2, 3, or 4 states over? Pray that they elect more Democratic Socialists. How can someone whose expertise is outside of the culture help change it? I love my job, but I'm not exactly changing hearts and minds here. Well, you are. You know, you're talking to people. You're talking here. If you're capable of making a donation to politicians, that helps. You know, membership at Build.com helps. The way you make a good country is you make good citizens, and the way you make good citizens is one at a time. So just by being a good citizen, you're not only, you know, adding 1/320 millionth of goodness to the pie, but you're also setting an example for others. So, look, man, just being free and open and speaking your mind about freedom is really all it takes. That line about all evil needs to flourish as that good men do nothing is about as true as anything I get. Here we go. I got to get this answered because it appears like 9 times. It's going to be like a phone that doesn't stop ringing. Richard says, Bill, Trump said that the GOP, if Trump doesn't kill the filibuster, the Dems will, and then they'll pack the court so that the GOP never wins again. The only way to stop the bleeding at this point is for MAGA to actually be allowed to get its agenda through, and that requires killing the filibuster. Good argument. It's the second time you've convinced me. Sold. I no longer have. I no longer let my penchant for traditionalism that has worked get in the way of getting things done. California passed Prop 50 to reapportion California so that California picks up, 5 or 6 more seats. But as far as gerrymandering go, we are blue gerrymandered to the gills. New Mexico, 40% voted for Trump, 0 representation in the House. I think the same is true for was Massachusetts, 40% Republican, 0 House seats. So I say let's they've been gerrymandering since they've been Democrats. So let's gerrymander the hell out of it. Repeal the 17th Amendment. Yeah. I actually genuinely have said before, and I really think there's something to it. If I could do one thing, if I could fiat one thing to fix the country, I genuinely think I would repeal the 17th Amendment. I think that actually would be the single most important thing you can do to break centralized power in this country. Give the Senate back to the states where it belongs, and it's not a House of Lords anymore. The people have a vote in the House of Representatives, and the states have the Senate, and the 17th Amendment utterly destroyed the balance between the federal government, the states, and the people. So I'd love to just abolish it. But if you can't do that, then there's nothing in the Constitution about the filibuster. So trash it. If it turns out it's in our way, get rid of it. I am playing by their rules now. I'm not, especially since Charlie Kirk was shot. That's when I realized I'm done. I'm done. I'm going to play power politics and you know, no more gentlemen, you know, Marquis of Queensberry's rules. Damien, just for those of you who don't know, Damien says, which one is the 17th? So prior to the 17th Amendment, the way the Constitution was set up was that you have a problem. And the problem was you're trying to get 13 colonies to agree. And the small states, like Rhode Island, when the Constitution was being hammered out, said, why would we join this union when states like New York are going to outvote us all the time? They have 50 times our population or more. Right? Why would we join the union when all we're going to do is just be slaves of the populace state? Why would we join this? And that's a damn good argument. We should all have equal representation. Then New York says, wait a minute now, why is it that we, with our huge population, have the same vote as Rhode Island, who's got basically nobody there? That doesn't make any sense. So we did exactly what we're very, very good at, and we said we're going to compromise and do them both. The House of Representatives is going to be composed of representatives based on the population of the state. So a big state is going to have more votes in the House of Representatives than a small state will. But the Senate is going to have 2 senators, no matter how big the state is. So Rhode Island and New York are equal in the Senate, but they're very unequal in the House. And both of these things, both for a bill to become law, has to pass the House and the Senate. And it's genius. It's genius, genius, genius. But what that meant was that prior to the 17th Amendment, the people of the state of Georgia, let's say, the people would be represented by the representatives, but the state of Georgia, not the people in the state of Georgia would be represented in the Senate by the senators. Because prior to the 17th Amendment, the people did not elect senators. The state legislature appointed senators. So if you lived in Alabama, or Georgia, let's say, rather, you've got a representative who represents you, but there's also a senator who doesn't represent the people of Georgia. He represents the state of Georgia. That's what protected the power of the states. And when you take that away and you make a senator elected by the people, you've really just reproduced the House. And so who's protecting the rights of the state of Alabama? Why do I keep saying Alabama? Who's protecting the rights of the state of Georgia? Nobody anymore. Nobody. The state of Georgia used to be protected by the Senate. Now the Senate is just the House of Lords. It's just a glorified... That's no different than the House. Eliminate popular vote for senators and have the states send people to the Senate who don't give a damn about the people of Georgia. They care about what is good for the state of Georgia. And if you've got the Senate defending the states and the House representing the people, then the federal government doesn't have that kind of power. But once it becomes elected by popular vote, then federal government becomes much, much stronger because there's nobody protecting the states anymore. That's basically how it works. Ray Juarez. Hi, Bill. Topic. AI is caustic to online Gen Z. I got that again. Absolutely right. I did some polling on Discord over several different types of server, art, tech, games, politics, and YouTube. With 103 respondents, I like the way you think already, Ray. At the time of the posting, across each server type, 93% of people who follow big and small YouTubers said they will not watch something that has AI visuals even if the story is compelling. I'm with you so far. I understand where you're going with that. I know you desperately want your work on the colonies to be as realistic as possible, but it seems like using AI has far too many drawbacks and might just burn your reputation. Many of the people that responded said that even if it is good, the AI turns them away without a second thought because it is like trying to find a drop of wine in a septic tank. The search isn't worth the reward no matter how good the wine is. I've also talked with a few 3D artist friends, and they have said that with prefab models, it would take about 2 to 3 days for them to set a scene up. I can try to get you in touch with them as well. Please be careful going down the AI road. It doesn't seem like people enjoy it beyond gags like you on the wing of the plane. Okay. All of this is true. And I'm aware, I wasn't aware that the number was quite that high, but I am aware of this. Look, there's already a term called AI slop. And AI slop is AI slop. But the reason that AI slop is because of the scene that I showed you. If I were to cut together the first takes of that scene, it would look and sound fake. When you ask that question, Ray, and you're absolutely right, what people are thinking about when you say things like AI YouTube or so on, what they're thinking about is like Bigfoot videos or or stuff that people just throw together and so on. My entire purpose is to make it invisible, and there is no way to do what I want to do any other way. And that takes me to a good excuse to play something that I've just wanted to play forever. I'm going to play it again, and if you don't want to watch it, too bad for you. What I'm going to show you is not what I showed you already. Most of you have seen it before. I'm going to play it again because I like it. What I'm about to play for you is my favorite thing ever. It's not the best work I've ever done, but it is, of all of the things I have ever done in my life, I have never been more personally happy with anything than what I'm about to show you. And for those of you that had a problem with it before, this is not intended to be the same crew. Every one of these images are different. I'm trying to show a great deal of variety. I'm going to play it now. It's only 3 minutes. I just want to see it again. But I want you to watch it because this is the point I'm trying to make. I have not released this to the public. It's only been shown on Stratosphere Lounge and Stratosphere Studio. But I think that this is the opposite of AI slop, and there is simply no way that I could do what I'm about to play for you for less than $30 or $40 million. And this didn't cost me $40 million. This cost me $300 and 2 days. Okay? So, this technology allows me to get my vision on the screen. And I spent an enormous amount of time making sure that the AI that you're about to see doesn't look like AI. I spent an enormous amount of time on it. Have I got it loaded? I think I do. Ready? Okay, here we go. 3 minutes. This is the favorite thing that I've ever done in my life. Ready? All right, here we go. I'm back because it didn't load in YouTube. Hang on a second. That might be because That's not slop. And the reason it's not slop is because the person that created that is a pilot and generated hundreds of cockpit images to find faces that I believed were usable, and then another set of hundreds of animations to make sure that it looked absolutely realistic, and then I put them in order of descending altitude. That, what you just saw, any one of those shots is at least a week's worth of work, and you will never, ever, ever get it to look that realistic. Ever. It just won't. That to me is my vision, and to me, that is not only good enough, it's better than my wildest dreams. So I'm not disagreeing with you, and I'm not disagreeing with the 93% of the people. What I'm saying is that AI is like any other tool, and it depends on the artist. It depends on the craftsman. The next thing I want to work on in my voluminous free time, and I'm not working on the rest of the stuff I need to work on. Sometimes I have things like I'm uploading or I'm rendering something else. So I occasionally have time for this. That looked fan-frickin-tastic. That looked like movies. And there's no way that I could have done one of those shots in less than a week, and it wouldn't have looked real. All of the vibrations, when those ships vibrate, you can see the things that are hanging or moving, and the clouds, and all of that. The rain would have had to be particle effects. It's unparalleled. But again, I can't stress this enough, Ray. I cannot stress this enough. I am not arguing with you. I completely agree that there is just so much AI junk out there. I'm just determined that I'm not going to be. I'm just not going to be part of it. Witty Fool says, "I love the characters, but tell me why I want to know where they are and why they matter." All of that, I'll get all of that. Sadly, Marusha Dark, of course, disagrees, because Marusha disagrees with everything. My own experience reflects Ray's on this. We want you to succeed, but the goal is to reach these people with a message, not the delivery system, right? I know many who reject even a hint of AI, even if it's top quality, because they hate a hate boner for it. This is why I keep saying use AI for concepting and block out, and then pitch it to a studio, since you did half the work already. I can't pitch it to a studio because it's $100 million project. It's a $500 million project. I'm not going to get $500 million. And the only people that will get $500 million are the kind of studios that make this kind of crap, like Star Trek Discovery and all the rest of it. The entire purpose of this is to be able to circumvent those people and produce exactly what I want to produce, the way I want to produce it. And I don't believe that looked like AI. I'm sorry. It looks like a movie to me. So the next thing I'm going to do, because I'm doing tests, I'm doing from the beginning of this with the Memorial Day thing. What I've been doing is just been expanding the envelope of and I'm getting experience and so on and so on. But look, man, if I had $500 million, I don't think it would look that good. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write, just because I like those just like that visual so much. I'm going to write the scene where the family comes down from orbit and lands on Niflheim, or Sniffelheim as they say. And the reason that I'm going to do that is I want to test consistency of the characters. I'm going to have two pilots in the front. I'm going to have the family in the back. And I am going to crack out my knowledge of aviation. So it's going to sound like commercial pilots on an instrument approach. It's a limited test. It's a simple test, um, and there you go. But look, this Mandalorian season 1 was approximately 100 to 120 million, averaging about $15 million per episode. This looks much better than The Mandalorian. Much better. Much better. And I saw some, when I was looking at the Space Whales on Shogun, whatever the hell that damn show is named, the costumes look like the costumes that you would be wearing at Disney World if you were running the Star Wars ride. They were absolutely appalling. So, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write a little sequence, which I plan to put into the sizzle reel for the crowdfunding thing, and it's going to be just a little 2-minute re-entry from space, and I'm going to be using this kind of view, and I'm going to be addressing the realism that I can bring to every one of these scenes, because I understand how these systems work. I understand how spaceships work. I understand what real air traffic control is. I know what real pilots say. I know all of this stuff. I appreciate that, Marusha. I was being a little flip. I didn't mean to be so snarky. It came out harder than I wanted it to. But it doesn't look like AI to me. And I put a lot of work into making sure it didn't look like AI to me. So next time, you're going to get a tiny story, right? It's not going to be much of a story, but it is going to be enough to show the hard science of just how hard this hard sci-fi is. These guys are going to be they're going to be talking to air traffic control. They're going to be dealing with some of the systems in the cockpit. I have a couple shots of the entire family of 4 in the back, looking out the windows, talking a little bit like that. I'm just going to use that to move to the next step, and the next step is to show this level of quality with synchronized sound and dialogue and all of that. So that's what I'm going to do. And if I can, here's why I want to do that next. Not because I want to show off all the cool terminology, although I do. Not because I want to show off the cool visuals, although I do. What I want to do is I want to see that if in 2 minutes, can I make you believe that the pilot and the co-pilot, who you've never seen before and will never see again, are real people doing their job? I'll tell you who did pull that off, and that is that guy back there, not the Gorn, Stanley Kubrick. When Heywood Floyd was flying on either flying up into orbit or from the space station to the moon, the extras, the guys flying the ship, looked like they were flying the ship, and that's it. So everything that I do is intentionally trying to build skills to get to the point where it's there. Now, my problem with the reentry thing is the exteriors. I'm probably going to have to do that in Blender or maybe Unreal Engine. I know Unreal Engine much better than Blender, because the exterior visuals have to be CGI. That's what CGI is good at. CGI is good at things like geometry, the ship, all of that stuff. What CGI is terrible at is human faces. And so it is frustrating to have to go to, you're not just going to different software, you're going to 2 completely different domains, AI and CGI, but the CGI is excellent at hard surface things, and there's no uncanny valley because nobody really knows what a reentry vehicle will look like if it's got wings on it in a cockpit. It's great. If it's got wings on it in a cockpit and you can see inside the windows people moving, then it's really great. But the thing about AI is that nothing that CGI has ever done or ever will do. And listen, I'm not trying to, Ray, I appreciate this. It's not like I don't. I deeply appreciate it. But if you talk to your 3D artist friends and ask them to produce photoreal humans who are indistinguishable from actors, they cannot do it. They can't. And that's the breakthrough that made this work. Just in that thing I showed earlier with the guys in the office, those look like real people talking. And forget about the amount of work it would take to get the fabric to move right and the facial motion capture and all that stuff. I just typed in the dialogue and they get the scene, and then I had to adjust the scene, which really is what the difference between slop and not slop is. If I had shown you the first draft of that scene, all of the acting was over the top and it was all AI acting, and I was like, take it down, take it down, take it down, take it down, take it down. Again, I'm very grateful, and I'm not saying this to be defensive. I deeply appreciate your concern for me, but I am fully aware of that. And when we get to the point where we're actually going to be doing this, we're going to be having actors like Gary Sinise and John Voight, and I'm hoping James Woods and all the rest of it are going to be performing in front of a camera that will be mapped directly onto their characters. So it will not only be their voices and their inflections, it will be their performance. And that is what's going to sell it. Because the thing I did earlier with the conversation between the two people, again, that was text to video. I just wrote the words, the software did the performances. But when I get, and the beautiful thing about this is, I've bought thousands of stock animations for CGI, thousands. But when I get, the great thing about it is, if I ask somebody like Gary Sinise if they want to be a part of this, Gary Sinise doesn't even have to come out here. Gary Sinise can read the lines into a webcam or into an iPhone, and we can set things up so that it can be done. Even if he flew out here, it'd still be the same thing. So, there you go. I don't see any uncanny valley thing in those people. I did not. I had no sense that those people were simulated. They looked 100% believable and real to me, and the reflections and the plexiglass on their screen, it's fantastic, and all the details it filled in. Just doing the displays, in the cockpit would take days, and now it just does it. So I fully accept what you're saying, and I'm going to be the exception to that rule. And I understand that exceptions to the rule are exceptions to the rule. But no AI I have ever seen, I'm pretty sure about this, yes, no AI I have ever seen has ever been done by a guy who's a professional writer and director. It's done by guys who are AI guys, or somebody who's gotten a hold of, text to video, and there it is. In the near future, I may call Kelly Carlson about this. In the near future, I'm going to do a test of performance mapping by an actual actor instead of me. And I think I'll do that just to get other people hyped about it. But when it comes time for the sizzle reel for the crowdsourcing thing, I fully expect to have, not making promises, but I would be quite shocked if I did not only have if I did only not have Gary Sinise on camera saying, hey, this guy Bill Whittle really knows what he's doing, you really need to back him, but I'm also going to have him as a character with his voice and his performance in AI, and then we'll see. Steve Young says, when I see in your samples is a recurring look to the side, look back to the front, repeat, I can now not see that. Yes, that's right. Because the prompt for this, because I did it in 2 days, it was the same. I have a high level of confidence that Mike Rowe could be a character and maybe even one of the main characters. But the prompt for all of those things was pretty much the same. The pilots look at each other with a concerned look. They're not scared, but they are focused. The turbulence is very intense. They look out the window and then back to their instruments. It's basically the same prompt and just ran it a bunch of times, and you get it differently and so on. But when you've got dialogue, then the guys are doing their job and they only look at each other when they're talking, and that's what's going to be making the difference. And by the way, I tried to talk myself out of it. Grelber says, the only thing I noticed was that the rain seemed to be going backwards at one point. There's that one shot where I looked at it, said the rain's going backwards, and at the end of the shot, it goes forwards, and I thought that'll be good enough, but every time I see it, it bothers me. So I'm going to do another, I've still got the source files, I'm just going to do one more output of it, and I'll just keep that. But yeah, the story, it's going to live and die based on the story. And we've had discussions here now for a year about whether or not I'm going to kill a character that no one's even seen yet, that no one's has seen or heard a word of dialogue yet. And I've got people who are like, don't kill this kid who you've never seen yet or anything. Because I put a lot of heart into this story. And I think if the stories are great, I think it's going to work. I know it's going to work. Let's see, we got a Guy Bela, we got a Capital G Geek, Steve Young, and Eric Blake. I still got to move the mail here. Okay, here we go. Greetings, Bill. Should graphic images remain public with proper warnings? Of course. Assuming you mean like X-rated thing. Let's see what he says. The powers. Oh, I see where you're going. The powers that be have locked away most of the graphic images of 9/11, and now there's terrorist supporters in Congress and mayors of once great cities. Now there's an increasing number of people who think that it was something other than Islamic terrorists who hijacked 4 airplanes that September day, and now there are countries that aided and abetted these terrorists who were never punished, are supposedly our allies. I'm talking to you, Saudi Arabia and Qatar. I'm with you on this, buddy. Every time one of these Islamic fundamentalists is spewing their hatred for America, should we be showing the graphic results of their ideology? That way Americans and the rest of the shrinking world can remember what the so-called peaceful religion stands for. Along the same lines, Israel compiled a 45-minute video of the horrific atrocities committed on October 7th, but never made it available to the general public. It's a very important point. Was this a missed opportunity to showcase just how utterly barbaric and evil Hamas and the Palestinians who support them are? Even though these images and videos are hard to watch, I'm of the opinion that they're necessary to remind people that evil exists and what it looks like. Anyone who feels the need to defend these barbarians should at least have to watch the results of their ideology first. It's a never-ending battle to keep evil from spreading. Thoughts? Sorry about the long question. It's a great question, and I can answer this. Absolutely, 100% agree with you. First of all, in a free society, that those images should be available. I think virtually all images should be available. I think the images of the recovery of the Columbia should be available. I think all of it should be. If it's done on the public dime, then we should have a right to see it. Now, with that said, one of the things that is, I think, really important to American, not to human mental health, is the ability to protect children from things that they are not prepared to see at this point in their development. And this obviously extends to pornography and all the rest of this stuff. So, yes, I think it absolutely should be available. And yes, I think it should be difficult to get a hold of. And the only example that I can think of that seems appropriate to me I'm sure, I know they don't do this anymore, because if they did, they wouldn't have so many emotional meltdowns over little things. But if you're of a certain age, and I'm of that age, and by the way, I don't want to talk about this now, but maybe we can chat about it on Monday or something. I don't know who came up with this idea for Generation Robert. It's the dumbest name I've ever heard, but that's exactly where I am. There's really a need for it. That last 7, 8, 10 years of the baby boom is very different than the top end of the baby boom. I see Gen X people talking about things that belong to me, you know. So anyway, where Generation Robert came from, I don't know, but that person needs to be fired. However, there is a cohort that shares experiences with each other, but not with the boomers and not with Gen X, and I'm one of those guys. 59. So people are saying 55 to 65. Anyway, so if you're in Generation Robert, you took driver's ed in high school, and it was in high school that that they showed us a series of films that had names like Mechanized Death and other names, but we collectively called it Hamburger on the Highway. And in driver's ed in the 1970s, these were films that they would bring in on a Blood on the Highway. Yeah, they would bring them in on a 16 millimeter projector, and they would run them during driver's ed classes. And that was my first exposure to real blood and gore. And I think I was the only person in the room that got so sick I had to get up and leave, which I was deeply ashamed of. In fact, I was so bothered by it, I've said this several times before, that at some point, somewhat later in my life, once the internet started to happen, I just said, it's not, I don't want to be a guy. I don't want to be a guy who's incapacitated by these sites because when something like this happens, somebody has to have their wits about them. And so I started watching all kinds of stuff. And it was horrible. I like horror films. Yeah, horror films don't bother me. You know, it's funny you mentioned that. The only other time I actually felt like faint was when I saw, what's that film called? The Hunger? Was it The Hunger? David Bowie? Natasha Kinski? And that wasn't gore. The gore doesn't bother me. Chainsaws don't bother me. That was just a lot of slit throats with knives and razors and just a lot of blood. And I got out of the theater, and I could hear my head was ringing, and my legs felt like they were made out of, rubber. And I got up to walk out, and I walked up the aisle, and then I hear everybody laughing, and I thought, what the hell's everybody laughing for? And it's because I walked into the wall. I was that faint. But I just said to myself, it's an odd thing to train yourself to do. I know, but it struck me as important at the time. So I did. So I just watched. I remember this really clearly. I saw a Russian soldier have his head sawed off with a knife in Chechnya. And that was like, man, but over time, you become desensitized to it. And that was my objective. And I still dip my toes in there every now and then, because it doesn't affect me at all now, at all. And I don't want that to happen to everybody, but I do think, and I think your point's exactly right, I do think that 9/11 images, uncensored 9/11 images, should be shown in high school to seniors. I think they should be made to watch it, because they're old enough, and this is what the world is, and that's another reason why I go seek these things out sometimes. Sometimes I'm just in a black mood, And that's not a good time to do it. But the other reason that you need to show this to people is because people need to know what the actual world is like, not what Disneyland here in America is like. This is what people see on their streets every day. They need to understand how special America and the West is. They need to really appreciate how protected they are from these things, because just to take one of many examples, make LiveLeak great again. LiveLeak, and what was the first one that was Rotten.com, when the internet first started. But when you've seen somebody beaten to death and then set on fire by a mob for rape or for stealing, and when you see somebody actually burning to death, it recalibrates your perception of reality. And I don't want American children subjected to that, but I do want American adults subjected to that, because it's important, because that's reality. It's like I was saying earlier: truth, reason, decency. This is truth. This is what the world out there looks like. This is what life in Islamic society looks like. This is what Hamas did right after the ceasefire was declared. They took people who they said collaborated with Israel, marched them out to town square, kneeled them down, and blew their brains out. And people need to see that. They need to see it. And you can desensitize yourself to this. I don't want children desensitized to this. I don't want the general population desensitized to this. I desensitize myself to this on purpose because I understand that these things happen, and I need to be able to function in an emergency. And it's been useful to me. I had a woman got hit by a bus outside my limo company, and she had a compound fracture of her leg, and bone was sticking out, and dark blood is pooling on the ground, and I got a tourniquet on it, and it was San Marino, so I mean, the second I got to the street, I could hear sirens on the way. But my boss at the time of the limo company stayed inside there. I heard this thump. I looked outside. This bus had struck this black woman. She was on the ground. I go running back into the limo office. He can't see, the guy behind the desk who owned the company can't see what's going on. I said, somebody's been hit by a bus, call 911, call 911, and I learned from experience, give them your address. Because a lot of times people freak out even on 911. Call 911 and tell them to come to your address. Most people know their own address. So we did. And I go running out there, and this woman's kind of, dazed. And I got a tourniquet around her leg, and I could see that the blood was dark, which is good, which means it's venal blood, not arterial blood, and it's not spurting out. It's just pooling. Okay, that's good news. Took off my my black triple knit polyester jacket, put it over her to keep her warm. I said, "Don't worry, you can hear the ambulance is on the way," and she's saying, "Okay." And then the guys came, and they took great care of her. And I went back into the office, and the guy behind the desk who owned the company said, "Was it Eric? Was it Eric? Eric is his son. Was it Eric?" I said, "No, John, it wasn't Eric." "Oh, thank God. Oh, thank God." And I'm thinking to myself, how can you sit there behind a desk and suspect that your son has been hit by a bus and not be able to help? But some people are just immobilized. I had a friend who was a flight attendant for Eastern Airlines, and during her training, she said that they train because there are people, and I'm not faulting these people in any way. It's human nature. I'm not faulting them at all. I'm just saying I don't want to be in that situation. But they said in the training for these flight attendants, they said, listen, sometimes a plane will belly in, and people will sit in their seats and burn to death because they are incapacitated. It's not like they're blocked. It's not like they simply can't move. And I said, I'm not going to be that guy. I'm not going to be that guy. And so I'm not. Infidel 42 says, I have the opposite reaction. I try to jump in and help. Hardly surprising. I'm an ambulance jockey. Good for you. I don't blame people who are incapacitated. This is a form of, I had an objective to prepare myself for this, and it worked. And most people don't do that because it doesn't occur to them. But yeah, and I've been the first person on scene of several accidents, and run to the sound of gunfire, man. That's important. Like as the Waves, which is a beautiful handle, says the ancient Greeks had a messenger character report on horrible acts in the drama rather than show them. Everybody understood the terror without seeing it. Now we get increasingly gore and torture. It seems the story is built around it. The story is the excuse for the violence. Absolutely right. That's exactly right. The story is the excuse for the violence, and that's why it's awful. Because it's why it's doesn't feel real and all the rest of it. But Bill is talking about the necessity of the public seeing the reality of real terror. I understand your point of view. Yeah, I've seen footage from 9/11. It's poor quality footage, but it's of the walkway between the two towers, and it's where all of the jumpers landed. And it's very far zoomed out. I don't know how else to describe it. Forgive me for describing it this way. It's so far zoomed out that you can't really tell what it is. The closest thing I can describe it is it looked exactly like when you swat a mosquito. It's like a little area of like pink and then just formless sort of black. Just dot, 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 like all these little swatted mosquitoes on the ground there. Those are people. And that's what happened to people because of Islam, because of Al-Qaeda, because of Osama bin Laden. And yes, people need to understand that that's real. If you showed this to every high school senior, they wouldn't be saying that when you don't use my pronouns, that's an attack on me. That's violence. No, this is violence. This is violence. One more thing on this subject. I had a friend named Kelly Donnell. He wasn't a friend for a long time, but when I got to college, I spent my first year in a dorm at Simpson Hall at the University of Florida, and then I rented a room in a house with 3 other actors, and one of them was this guy Kelly, and Kelly was just the coolest dude, man. He was wearing Wayfarers, way before anybody else. Kelly Donnell said, "Hey, man, you might want." He'd be playing this music. I said, "What is this?" He said, "That's a band called the Talking Heads." "What's this album called?" "It's called Remain in Light." I said, "I've never heard anything like this before." He said, "No, it's pretty cool. These are the B-52s. Here's Laurie Anderson." He was always just right there. I was like, this is amazing. But Kelly, after college, we both were from Miami. Kelly got a job as a camera operator on a news crew. And Kelly said, and I've never had this direct experience, but I certainly believe it. So Kelly and the news crew often, in fact, I think he said more often than not, they would get to a crime scene before the police got there. At least in some cases they did. And Kelly said, you get used to the blood and the gore. Somebody's just had their brains blown out, right? He said, I got used to that. It's just, you just get used to it. It's just something that happens. So we would be getting the footage and everything, he said, but the one thing I never, ever got over and never could get over, and the one thing I kept praying for every time we went out on one of these things was, he said, when a relative, especially a mother, comes on the scene and sees their child dead, he said, they make a sound that you don't believe humans can make. You don't believe it's possible for a human being to make that sound. And he said, I never want to hear that sound again, and I used to pray to God that we would get out of there before the relatives, especially the close relatives, came out. And I thought, man, yeah, he's got that right. And this is very connected. Dave Reels Area 51 says, I recently heard an audio of a guy in one of the towers. At one point, you hear a rumble and the guy screaming, oh God, oh God. And the phone cuts out. Audio of a man who was going down with the building. I can't stop thinking about his screams. Dave, did you see that synced to the video? Because that call is famous. But when I first heard that call, I saw it synchronized with the tower collapsing. And just before you can visibly see the tower, the guy lets out this scream, and as the building is going down, you hear the oh God, and it's like I saw I heard a video. I heard an audio a couple times now. I've heard audio transcripts of pilots who had like mid-air collisions. So it's not like, look, if you got an engine failure or something, you're busy, you're flying the airplane. And I've heard people screaming when they were inverted in the clouds, that kind of thing. But I heard one of a guy in a helicopter who had a mid-air collision, and he's just screaming, and it's just freaking horrifying. It's horrifying. But this is Earth. Zoe told me this during a Virtue Signal show. We're talking about this, and we're talking about the nature of things and evil, and sometimes how much horror there can be in life, and Natasha is especially vulnerable to this. Her love for animals exceeds mine by so many orders of magnitude, and whenever there's anything like with an injured animal or something like that, she just melts. And I tell her what Zoe told me when we're talking about that. Zoe said, Bill, welcome to Earth. This is Earth. This is what happens on Earth. This is where we live. This is how the world is built. This is Earth. Natasha showed me something today that just had her sobbing. And it was real simple. She brought it in, and I said, honey, what's the matter? And she says, I want you to look at this. And it was just a simple little garden, like a backyard garden. I don't know if it was in England or America. It was a garden, and there were like 6 or 7 geese out there. And this woman went walking out, and she did this on purpose. She went walking out into the middle of the garden, and she gave out this little scream and collapsed to the ground, like unconscious or dead. And all of these geese immediately flock towards her. Just immediately, all of them start running towards her, and they're kind of nudging her, and they're pecking her like this, and they're just like whack, whack, whack. There's no question that these geese are freaking out that this person has died. And Natasha's watching this. She says, we eat these things. We eat these animals that are clearly showing an emotional reaction to human in distress and things like that. And what do you say to that, I mean, I say, honey, I can't deny any of this. The only comfort that I can give you on this is there's no question these animals are grieving. There's no question that animals grieve, and there's no question about it. And there's no question that we eat these things too, because chickens will do this too, apparently. I said, the only comfort that I have for you is, number one, up until the point when those geese are finally killed, they live an idyllic life for animals. Their food is always available, and there are no predators. I said, honey, this isn't happy news, but nothing dies of old age in nature. Nothing in nature dies of old age. This animal is going to have a really rough minute or two. It may not even be that long, and it's going to be over. But it's better than being eaten alive, and that's what will happen otherwise. That's Earth, honey. That's Earth. This is where we live. And I said, and the other thing that I think helps me, because I feel the same way, is that animals do not have a prefrontal lobe. They are not capable of being afraid of things that haven't happened yet, because in order to have the idea of the future, you have to have an imagination. You can have an awareness of the past through memory, But in order to imagine the future, you have to have an imagination, and they just don't have it. So geese do not live with a sense, or chickens for that matter, or cows, or any of them, don't live with a sense of impending doom. That's us. We put that on them. They are unaware of it, and this has been some comfort for me with my cats and stuff, because if I leave home, and I leave Natasha and I go someplace, even if we go for like 3 days, and I have to leave the cats alone, I feel awful about it. I get over it by the second day, but I feel awful about it. And the only thing that comforts me is the understanding of the truth, reason, and decency, man. And the truth is that a dog or a cat is unaware that you are gone for any period of time because they don't have a sense of the future. As far as a dog or a cat is concerned, you're either home or you're not. And if you're not, the dog or the cat doesn't think, when is he coming home? Because that requires a prefrontal lobe. No question that when you do come home, that the animals are glad to see you. But it's not like they sit there while you're gone wondering if you're going to come back, at least to some degree. And then you hear these stories about these dogs who go to the train station and wait for their master to come back from the train, and they sit there for 20 years waiting. That episode of Futurama where that dog is waiting for Fry to come back. I mean, it's just like God, it's horrible. Yeah, I'm with you on this too. Completely agree. TBA 113 says, if my dogs aren't waiting for me on the other side of the pearly gates, I don't want to go. Yeah, I'm with you, man. And that's why I think they'll be there. In fact, I've heard many people say, this is the first thing I expect to see. I expect to see my dog come running up to me, real glad to see me. And if heaven is real, and I become increasingly convinced that it is, then yeah. And one of the reasons I believe this is because of the scientific evidence that time is an illusion, that time is a creation of our consciousness, because time and physics doesn't make sense. There's a lot about things in when you get really down into physics, there's a lot of things where time just simply cannot be factored into it. And I think time is a perception that we experience for dimension in a direction, but we can't process that since we can't see the fourth dimension. So we have this thing called time. But what I believe scientifically is that all moments, past, present, and future, in your life are equally real. They all exist at the same time, and we are just the needle in the track of the record album. That's where our consciousness is and our now is. I believe that everything that ever happened to us and everything that will happen to us is built into the structure of the universe, and that's not predestination. I believe that our free will choices are baked into this. And you say, how can that happen since it hasn't happened yet? And then you're talking about before and after, and I'm saying there is no before and after. We don't have the horsepower. We just don't have the neurons to process things like eternity and before and after. We think, well, what was there at the beginning? Well, the Big Bang. Well, what was there before the Big Bang? There was nothing before the Big Bang. You mean there's emptiness? No. Nothing. Well, there must have been something. We just can't get there. We don't have the ability to conceive of eternity or infinity, for that matter. If the multi-world theory is correct, it means that every single, think about this, no two waves have ever been the same in history. The motion of the sea is completely random. Every second, every millisecond, it's different. If the multiverse theory is true, that means that every single time two water molecules move in different directions, it creates another entire universe. And you think that can't possibly be true. Where'd you put it all? And if you think, well, where'd you put it all? You don't understand infinity. Because in infinity, there's room for everything. So there we go. I would really, how long have we been on the air? Coming up on 3 hours. All right. I'm going to take two Steve's questions together. Capital G Geek, greetings from the swamps of Northern Virginia. I'm taking a break from politics this week for obvious reasons and doing a bit of neglected reading. One of the books I reread occasionally is C.S. Lewis's Mere Christianity. Have you read it, and what do you think? I don't think I've read Mere Christianity. I did read the Screwtape letters, and they were very, very good. I'm waiting for the third in the SJW Rules series explaining leftist behavior. The first two are SJWs Always Lie and SJWs Always Double Down. The third will be called SJWs Always Project. They're not in the same league as Conflict of Visions, but they're much more approachable. If you haven't read them, I'd recommend them. What are your favorites that you recommend and return to occasionally? I don't read much nonfiction, but I will say that when it came to nonfiction, I read every single one of the 56, whatever it is, novels of the Horus Heresy. I read the first one, and it was so good that it hooked me on the entire series, and entire novels could have been skipped, but I read every single one of them in order and then I read every single one of the Siege of Terra things. I understand that. That is the fiction I've consumed. Mostly I read nonfiction and history. And when I read something that I like in history, I'll read everything I can find about it. What was a good example of that recently? What was it? There was an Arctic expedition, HMS Erebus and HMS Terror. And I saw a series on Netflix called The Terror, which is excellent. They added a monster to it, but you could have been fine without the monster because the real expedition actually happened. And the general consensus, although this has been somewhat debated recently, is that this expedition was eating out of canned food that had been soldered with lead, and they all get lead poisoning and they all go insane. The Terror is excellent. It's just a really, really excellent series on Netflix. I love it. But once I read about it, I read about the expedition, and then I read 4 books on the expedition. I got to be kind of a little mini expert on the expedition. So when I see something in fiction, because history to me is much more interesting than fiction because it's more outrageous and it actually happened. So I just read a lot of history. If I had one book to recommend to people right now, just one book, I would say Last Stand of the Tin Can Sailors. That'd be if I had one book to recommend, that would be it. Okay, Steve Young's got 2 questions that seem related. And then we got Eric, and then we're good. Even Bill saw a post claiming the New York Stock Exchange is moving to Texas. What say you on this Thursday economics show? I say I hope they do, and I hope the rich people go with them, and I hope all these people who voted for free stuff with Jodani, that's a traveler name, Zohan Mandami, I think they should move to Texas. And I think they should call it the Texas Stock Exchange. New York is no longer a financial capital because communists and Islamicists have taken over. So enjoy your prison. Best thing I ever heard about New York was that somebody once said, a New Yorker once said that, and it might have been somebody like, I don't remember who it was, said that New York was the perfect prison because it's the only prison where the inmates think that they're the guards. So, yeah. He goes on with another one. New York City is the economic engine of New York State. The governor of a state is often blamed for a state's economic woes. Given the worldwide record of economic disasters to national economies by communist ideology, what do you think of a state's governor not campaigning against the election of a professed communist? Well, this is what the Democrats do. They see, the thing is that Klobuchar almost certainly is a communist. She's just got the common sense to not say that. She can't stand against this guy who's the most popular Democrat that I've seen since Obama, just in terms of sheer enthusiasm. He's got the meeting out of his hands. You know why? Because he's handsome, and he's a minority. He's Barack Obama 2.0. He's a handsome minority, and he's well-spoken, and Joe Biden would say he's clean and articulate. And they just, especially the women, obviously, They just fall in love. This is their husband. They've married the state, and this is the husband that they want from their state nanny. And the fact that he's Islamic is exotic and kind of thrilling, and they think it's thrilling, and they think Islam is thrilling, and some people are actually thinking about converting to Islam, because, as we were talking about a few minutes ago, none of them have seen the actual video from Islam. So they're going to get what they voted for, and I can't wait. And there has never been, in my awareness of human history, there has never been a more idiotic assumption in terms of mass hysteria than the left's belief that they can be partners with Islam and use Islam to get rid of conservatism and America, and then the two of them will just live together in peace and harmony. The only Americans that these Islamists respect are U.S. Army soldiers and Christian families with happily married husbands and wives and kids. They're the only ones that they're going to let live. We've done our best to try and warn them about this. We get called Nazis for it. Okay. You're going to get your socialism, and you're going to get your Islamism, and there you go. Yeah, if we pay the dhimmi tax, but they don't despise us. The Islamists, the reason Islam is so confident is because they're convinced that the West is terminally decadent, and they're half right. Half of the West is terminally decadent. It's got a death wish. It's clear they got a death wish. Unfortunately for Islam, the other half of the United States anyway ain't going that way. And we've got guns, and we're not only not afraid to use them, we're kind of looking forward to it, kind of looking forward to it. I know a lot of people, and I feel this myself too. I'm against violence, and I certainly don't believe in political violence, but there's a part of me that says, if these clowns started coming down the street, burning down houses, I didn't go to range for all those hours for nothing, man. They're going to be in for a bit of a surprise. And say what you want to about the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, but one thing it did do, and this is undeniable, is it showed first of all, it killed 40 to 60,000 Al-Qaeda fighters, which is a big benefit, and killed them there rather than here. But it also showed them that America is not just composed of latte sipping, metrosexuals who enjoy watching their wives make out with the wives' boyfriends while they sit in the hot tub sipping a Chardonnay. We went in there, and we were a bunch of Wu-Tang Clan MFers, and we kicked their asses in their backyard, and they haven't forgotten it. They haven't forgotten it. There's never been deadlier warriors than America's Special Forces, especially, and it is dawned on them. In fact, just yesterday, I think it was just yesterday, I saw an interview with a I guess it was a former SEAL, and somebody had asked him, why do you guys wear the beards? Oh, he said, oh, that's easy. We just do it for intimidation. What do you mean? He said, well, go to Afghanistan or go to Iraq, and they see a guy from the American Army, and he's got a buzz cut and he's clean shaven, and that's a guy who follows the rules. When they see us, they know that we don't follow the rules that the rest of the Army does. We're not going to play fair. We're not going to just line up and we're going to come get them in the middle of the night, and we're going to shoot them dead. And it works. He says real effective. When they see American soldiers looking like them and not wearing the uniforms and the bloused, blousing your pants into the boots and all, when they see us just walking around like this, loose, they know that we're not restrained by the rules that the rest of the American Army is, and it scares the piss out of them, and we love it. That's one of my favorite lines in movies, actually. It's not a politically correct line. It's one of the reasons I like it so much, but the helicopter scene in Apocalypse Now, the helicopter attack on that VC village is it's just magnificent. And R. Lee Ermey's in there too. But there's two lines in that little 6-minute segment that I just absolutely adore. One of them is when they're coming in low off the ocean, and they turn on Ride of the Valkyries, and Colonel Kilgore says, Martin Sheen's character says, "What is that?" And Kilgore is flying his helicopter. He says, "It's Wagner. Scares the hell out of the slopes. My boys love it." It's like, yeah, man. Yeah, if you're gonna do it, do it. And the other line I love, which is a really ironic line, a really poignant kind of line, is he goes in for this. They got these guys on a Jeep on a 50. They got a 50 cal in the back of the. They got a 50 cal on the ground. And I think they got a heavy weapon on a Jeep, and it's going down this bamboo causeway, and Robert. I want to say Robert Conrad. Anyway, Kilgore rolls in on this guy and fires his rockets, blows the living hell out of this thing. Robert Duvall, thank you. And he blows the hell out of it. He's looking over his shoulder at the wreckage and he says, "Don't these people ever give up?" It's like, turns out they don't. They don't. And that's why they won. But they wouldn't have won if we hadn't fought that war with both hands behind our back. Creighton Abrams said in 1972, we'd been like 480,000 men or something, the peak of our involvement in Vietnam. And by the time Nixon is ready to get out, it's like 1972. We got about 70, 80,000 guys left. And Creighton Abrams takes over from Westmoreland and says, basically, the president says, "Mr. President, we can win this war. We don't need any more." He says, "We're not putting any more troops into Vietnam, so we don't need any more troops. We've got plenty of troops. We're just going to take an armored column. We're going to go right up to the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and we're going to park the tanks in the center of Hanoi. We're going to dictate surrender conditions to the North Vietnamese. We got more than enough force to do it. I got a plan to do it. They can't stop our armor. They've never been able to stop our armor. We're just going to go. We're going to put air cover over the trail, and we're going to go wait till we get right in the center of the square, because we'd already been bombing them with Linebacker 2 and stuff, and we're going to dictate surrender conditions to them." And it was too late. It was too late. That would have had a big effect, not only on the rest of the Cold War, but that would have given the Islamists something to think about. But no. All right, last one, Eric Blake. Tonight, the case of the special election smackdown. Needless to say, Bill, this week showing a serious case of Monday morning quarterbacking. Like Joe Cabot said in Reservoir Dogs, what did we do? What didn't we do? What should we have done? What shouldn't we have done? It's your fault, my fault, all that BS. Leaving aside the painfully obvious off-year enthusiasm problem we never really seem to address, I think one of the best takes on our Tuesday blunders came from Vivek Ramaswamy, namely that we've been kind of neglectful in really addressing the affordability question, seeming content to point to the low inflation and leave it at that. Michael Knowles built on that insight today too. The college grads of my generation have felt severely left behind in dead-end jobs and permanent rent. Yes, because the difference between housing and income has just spread like crazy. After being told their whole lives, by the way, that the surefire way to get a guaranteed career is to go to college, and for those in New York City, as Alfred would say, in their desperation, they've turned to a man they don't fully understand. In a way, Bill, this harkens back to something I brought up a few months ago about the stereotypical book by conservative. Yeah. Our side is great at identifying crises and leaving it at that, with no clear-cut plans or solutions, no unifying contract with America put together ahead of time, early enough to spread the word and gain traction. And so, as Megyn Kelly noted this week, we just bicker and squabble instead of actually prepping for these things. So, you think we'll learn these lessons from Tuesday in time for next year? Heck, do you think that we even can? Yes, I think we can. I think the two things, because we got shellacked on this one. Just briefly in recap. First of all, this was largely a metropolitan election. You got, obviously, New York mayor is a big deal. You've got California trying to get back some of the, gerrymandering districts that the red states are doing. And, you've got Georgia and stuff. So there wasn't really a lot at stake in terms of red state America. I think that's the bottom level excuse. I think a level higher than that, and I think is very serious, and we ignore it at our peril, is that I think that a lot of conservatives sat this one out because of, I think a lot of conservatives, myself included, MAGA conservatives are generally pretty happy with what Trump's been doing, but there is a lot of, I'm sorry, I got to just answer this. Davian Cavendish says, Bill, as a Marine who saw combat in Kuwait and Iraq, combat isn't as flippant as you suggest. If I somehow came across as being flip about combat, that is the last thing that I want to do. That is not my intention at all, Damien. And if it came off that way, I sincerely apologize. I wasn't. I take as a civilian, recognizing that no one who's never been there can possibly understand what it's really like. I've made it a point to try my best to understand what it's like, and flippant is the last word I would use. So whatever came out of my mouth, I apologize for. It is serious business, and not relatable to anybody who wasn't there. I have nothing but the highest respect for our guys and what they did there, and I think the oh, come on, what is the name of the town? It's on the tip of my tongue. In any event, why can't I? In any event, I have the highest respect. Fallujah, yeah, Second Battle of Fallujah. Just the performance of our soldiers were just extraordinary, and I've had nothing but respect for them. So if something came off as flip or casual or not taking it seriously, I sincerely apologize. It certainly was not my intention. So hopefully that straightened that out a little bit. Yeah, highest level of respect for that, and a clear understanding that there's nothing. I'm not. I may be a keyboard warrior, but I'm not a keyboard warrior who pretends like being a keyboard warrior is the same as being the real deal. It is a completely different deal, and not even close. My experience with the Special Forces guys, and I've gotten to know some of them very, very well. The thing that impressed me the most about them was the guys who do the real work never say a word about it. They're just it's like the Brian Regan thing, you know. It's like if you're an astronaut, you got the ultimate story, so you don't have to be bragging at the dinner table. Just eat your salad, and I walked on the moon. So anyway, so to answer your question, Eric, the first one is the what I mentioned there. The second one is that we have suffered a lot of self-inflicted wounds, and the handling of the Epstein thing was catastrophic. I mean, for Trump to come out and say, I don't know any of my supporters that care about this. Damien says, sorry, Second Battle of Fallujah got my ass handed to me. Well, from what I was able to see from the other side of the world, there's no question that we lost a lot of brave guys, and I'm not trying to say that we didn't, but as a unit performance, it looked to me, as a historian, as a military historian rather than an actual warrior, it looked to me like the performance of the American forces there were just exceptional. That doesn't do anything to mitigate the people that we've lost or who were wounded or anything like that. I don't mean to suggest that. I was just talking about them in the, not in the abstract, but in the aggregate. And I'm just enormously proud of the work that was done over there. Whether whether you feel it was justified or not, just from a strictly performance point of view, it just seemed to me from where I was that in their backyard, it was exceptional. I hope you take that as a compliment rather than just an offhanded remark. It was certainly intended that way. Anyway, so the loss of confidence with the Epstein files, Doge was on such a roll. Doge was just, I thought Doge was just getting warmed up, man. It was, starting to nibble on the edges of the Department of Education. I said, here we go. Wait till it gets to the Defense Department. Wait till it starts getting into Social Security, where the real money is, because eliminating USAID really is going to have long-term consequences, because a lot of our political opposition was funded by USAID. But I thought they were going to go through this with a chainsaw and a wood chipper. And I'm with Elon Musk on this 100%, because when that split became apparent between Trump and Musk, it appears to me that that Musk's position was, I thought we were going to try and end this debt, and along comes the big beautiful bill, and we're adding more money to the deficit. I thought the whole point was to go through and just eat this thing alive, and I'm with him on that. It was really disappointing. So that Doge thing and the Epstein thing happened very close together in time, and it's like, we have 2 guaranteed years. We might have longer. It's unlikely, just because of how politics usually works, but we had 2 guaranteed years to just go in and just cut it up. And we didn't. And a lot of this stuff seems to be strong starts that aren't getting finished. We have used the deportation thing has certainly sealed the border. Nobody's coming over the border anymore. So there's that. Anyway, I think they've been overly I almost said enthusiastic. It's not really the word I'm looking for. I think that ICE should had a responsibility to be more careful than they have been in some cases. It's a miserable job. But look, man, when I see troops fighting Antifa in the streets of Portland, people say, "Did you vote for this?" It's like, no, I didn't vote for this. This is much more than I thought I'd ever get. Much more than I thought I'd get. So, he goes into D.C. and people are feeling safe for the first time. So it's been hits and misses, but the misses have really hurt us, And I think the ultimate answer to your question, Eric, is that no matter how far we go with this, and Trump is a once in a century personality, but the one thing that never seems to change is the conservatives' inability to tell a story, and the left Evan Sayet coined the term. He's absolutely right. The left has astonishing rhetorical intelligence, and we are rhetorically retarded. And what's especially enraging about this to me is that we have the best story in the history of the world to tell, and they have to lie about everything, and we still can't make a point that can be understood by anybody, by a Gen Z 18-year-old or by an 80-year-old, and everybody in between. No one seems capable of saying, this is what it means to be a conservative. This is what we believe. It's real simple. It's 3 things, right? It's 3 things. Don't hurt anybody, don't take their stuff, and do what you promised to do. That's it. That's all you need. And the rest of it is have fun. Have fun. Live your life. Do what you want to do. No one's going to tell you what to do so long as you don't hurt anybody, you don't take their stuff, and you do what you promised to do. The first 2 are criminal law. The third one is tort law. That's it. You do you. I'll do me. Everything's great. You wanna be trans? That's fantastic. You wanna be trans and wear a furry suit? That's just great. But you don't get to do it to children, and you don't get to tell the rest of us that we have to change our language to accommodate you. See how it works? It's just that simple. Boom. Boom. But nope, we can't do it. We cannot do it. We can't sell rock and roll, freedom, fast cars, hot women, and loud guns. We can't. We can't sell it. We don't know how to do it. It's astonishing to me. And this is the entire reason why this colonies thing has become my top priority, because I've been putting it off. I thought I'd been putting it off for 8 years or 10 years. And I was wrong. I sat down and really thought about it. I said, no, you've been putting off something like the colonies for 50 years. For 50 years. You're 66 years old. You had these ideas when you were 16. For 50 freaking years, you've been saying you'll get to it, you'll get to it. You got to do this other stuff first to get there. It's like, dude, you've got maybe 20 good years ahead of you, unless something really remarkable happens, which is possible. But you got 20, possibly 20, certainly 10, but possibly 20 creative years ahead of you because of guys like Clint Eastwood and so on. Oh, you're welcome, Ref Ryan. Happy birthday to your daughter. It was fun, and tell her we all really genuinely meant it, and I'm very happy for her, and many happy returns. And it's like now, man, now. So I mentioned I made this pitch, and I'm getting a little bit of coyness, and it's like, okay. So I just went through my contacts, and these are the people I'm going to be calling, and I've already sent out emails to some of them, because I'm going to make this damn thing happen. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to own it, and I'm going to get rich off it, and it's going to change the culture, and it's going to be fun, and this is my top priority, and I'm trying to get everything else done as well too. So there you go. Yeah, we've done a 3.5 hour tour here. 3:12, I guess, the recorded time. So that's it. Okay. That was fun. I will, Rochelle. I've got that queued up. I'll take a look at it. Anything I missed? No, probably not. Okay. Well, the show's made possible by the members at BillWhittle.com. And I just continue to get better at this. And the great news is that it is getting better faster than I can stay ahead of it. All of it. And I will, and this will look like a TV show. And I am going to get this done, because for the first time in my life, really, for the first time in my life, it has finally dawned on me. It only took 66 years, well, 50. Only took half a century, 50 orbits around the sun, for me to realize that the only people that get things done that they really want to do that are difficult are the people that will not take no for an answer. They will not take no for an answer. They will just keep going. That's what I'm going to do. Thanks to the members for making all of this possible and for keeping it going. When we end up doing a crowdsourcing thing, BillWhittle.com members will be automatically included in that. Oh, and one last thing. When you do the crowdsourcing, I really love this idea. It's the last thing I'll throw out. When you do crowdsourcing, you have to, it's good to have tiers, right? You get these rewards, and then these rewards, and these rewards, and so on. One of the things I learned from my friend Phelim, who raised the money for the Gosnell movie, was he said it's so much better if your rewards are somehow electronically based to the degree that you're not paying $14 for a sweatshirt on a $30 donation. Plus you got to deliver it, and you got to all that other stuff. But it occurred to me that that one of the things I can offer, and I can up it as the donations get higher, is that you can be in the movie. You can be in the movie. I can show you a template of what kind of shot you need. Taking a shot on an iPhone is fine. For whatever amount, $100, $1,000, whatever, you get to be a co-pilot, or you get to be a guy who's behind the thing. We just use real faces. You'll sign a release, and you get to be in the movie. And the higher level donation, it could be your face on regular characters, recurring characters. And not only your face, I could also do a recording of, if I had probably a minute of your voice, I could probably clone your voice too, and you can not only be in the movie, you can be in the series, you know. Now, obviously, the main characters are going to be professional actors, but you get to be featured extra, and there you go. And we'll have professional actors do the performance, but it'll be your face and maybe your voice. Who's the guy who runs the taco stand on the colony? It's just really fun. Be really fun. Roosh's already got it figured out. Tier levels: 1, name stuff; 2, face cameo; 3, repeat extra; 4, voice lines extra. Sold. All right. Make you look good too. Let me show you. Let me show you one thing. Just one thing. What's going on right now? This is the last thing, and I just wanted to do it since I just brought that topic up. The Midjourney has a tremendous imagination. Midjourney can imagine things like a frozen ocean and all the rest of the stuff. But Midjourney gets really wonky when it's trying to match faces. One of the still renderers is called Imagine You, and Imagine You has got exactly the opposite problem. Imagine You is an image generator designed to take your face and make it very, very close. But it can't do like really cool suits or anything. But let me show you. Let me just show you one still here. Because I was talking about putting people in the movie, right? Just to show you how good this is. So I gave it a reference photo of my face, and I said, put me in a science fiction outfit on a frozen and desolate planet. Now, this is not the frozen and desolate planet that I'm looking for, but I just gave it a reference headshot, and take a look at this. So, folks, you contribute a certain amount of money, and this can be you. Ready? Hang on, YouTube. Not too shabby, man. Not too shabby. So send me a picture, and this could be you on patrol outside the thing, or this could be you in a spaceship, or this can be you and whatever, and if it's a big donation, then you could be a recurring character who'll be acted by somebody else. He is rather wide of girth, but he is wearing a great deal of protective cold weather clothing, I might point out. But it's pretty good likeness, I think. So anyway, there's that. So just so you know, pretty cool. All right, thanks very much for being with us, and we will see you guys on Monday. I can make it thinner too. Just give me your face, tell me what you want to look like, and I'll get it done. All right, thanks for being with us, and thanks for all the help in the membership and all that stuff. And we'll see you guys on Monday.